Good luck finding me.
We're good.
All right, good evening, everybody. This is a regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment for Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. Notice has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting a copy of the notice on the first floor of the municipal building and sending a copy to the Montclair Times. This is a public hearing in which any members of the public are welcome to attend. The meeting agenda is available on the Montclair website, as is a link to the township's YouTube channel, where the hearing can be viewed live or after the fact. The hearing is also being televised on Channel 34. I'm going to call roll. Mr. Harrison?
Here.
Mr. McCulloch?
Here.
Mr. Caulfield? Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Moore? Mr. Vieira?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
Ms. Martineau, Mr. Simon, and Mr. Church are excused this evening.
Does Ms. Martineau actually respond?
She does. She's out of the country.
Okay. We have the minutes of the June 21st meeting. I don't have any changes to the minutes. Does anyone else have any changes? If not, someone want to move?
I'll make a motion to approve the meetings.
Is there a second?
I have to abstain.
I second it then. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
We have the resolution for the Hickey property on North Fullerton. I don't have any changes. Does anyone else have any changes? If not, can someone make a motion?
That'll be me. I'll make a motion to approve.
I second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Next one, I have to abstain on. So, Mr. Sullivan, my understanding is this can be done by a one-person vote.
It can. We just had it at a meeting I went to last week. That person has to move it, second it, and vote yes.
I'll move it to approve. I'll second it. I'll
And
vote
then
yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All abstentions? I abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, and we have the resolution for the Ibeh property on Union Street. I don't have any changes to that resolution.
I don't have any changes. I'll move to approve.
Okay, I second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
And then we have the resolution for the Hopkins Kamilaris property on Grove Street. I don't have any changes. Does anyone else have any changes?
No changes. I'll move to approve.
I second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, and then we have the request for the extension for the variance we granted on Waterbury Road. This was for a detached one-car garage on the property that we approved in August of 2021, and so tell me, they want a year extension?
They requested a 6-month extension. They're on the eve of getting their permits. They just were being careful.
Okay, so why don't we do it just to January 31st? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Tommy, you want to do the announcement?
Yes. Application number 2790 for 176 Walnut Street, application by Anne Marie Gauntlet, is going to be postponed until the August 16th, 2023 meeting.
Okay. We're actually expecting 2 more members, but one of whom has a little while ago, said he'd be here in 5 minutes, so, Alan, I don't know if you want to wait till he appears, and I'll, yeah. We'll discuss the last application when we see how we are, but right, it's up to you. If you want to proceed with 4. Okay. The first application is that of Thomas Johnston and Lisa Johnston for property at 35 Stanford Place. This is an application to construct a one-story addition on the west side of their existing single-family dwelling. The property is partially located in Montclair and partially in Glen Ridge, and Montclair is designated on the township tax maps as Block 4406, Lot 1, and is in the R1 one-family zone. A variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-44C4 to permit a building width of 70.9%, whereas the ordinance provides the maximum width may not exceed 65% of the lot width. Are taxes paid, and is the notice in order?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Tremblant.
Good evening, everyone. Alan Tremblant, appearing for the applicants Thomas and Lisa Johnson. I don't have much more to say than what's already in the notice. It's an application for a variance regarding the width of the principal structure of the existing single-family home. We're exceeding the maximum width by about 3.5 feet. That's the only variance. Paul Sionis is here. His office prepared the plans. Paul is prepared to discuss the plans and the variance with the board, and I would turn it over to him. I assume the board will accept his qualifications as an architect.
Mr. Styles, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address.
My name is Paul Sionis. My address is 8 Hillside Avenue, Montclair, New Jersey.
All right, and Mr. Sibilia, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
And just state your position with the town, please.
Assistant Planner, Assistant Secretary of the Board of Adjustment.
Thank you.
Paul?
Thanks, Rick. I'll be testifying as an architect and a licensed professional planner. My licenses are current.
We'll accept her as an expert on both of those fields.
So as was stated, this is an application for 35 Stanford Place in Montclair and Glen Ridge. I have about 8 PowerPoint slides which encompass the drawings that were filed, several photographs, and enlargements of the zoning chart. 35 Stanford Place is on the south side of Stanford Place. It's both in Montclair and Glen Ridge. In Montclair, it's known as Lot 1 in Block 4406. In Glen Ridge, it's known as Lot 10 in Block 127. The lot is a typical size for that portion of Stanford Place. It's 60 feet wide and about 165 feet deep. It's improved with a 2.5-story single-family dwelling and a one-car garage, a one-story garage that were both built around 1925. It's also improved with a brick patio directly to the rear or south of the dwelling, and also a paved driveway along the east side of the lot. The majority of the lot is in Glen Ridge. Only 23% of this entire property is located in Montclair, and that's the triangular portion in the front northwest side of the property. The proposal is fully conforming in the borough of Glen Ridge, so it complies with all of Glen Ridge zoning, but in Montclair, it has a variance request for the width of the building on the lot. In the R1 zone, the maximum building lot is allowed to be 65%. The existing house is non-conforming and exceeds that 65%. The proposal is to expand a small portion of the house to enlarge the kitchen slightly, as Alan said, about 3 feet above what it's allowed to be. So the existing house has a width of 66.8%, and the proposal is to have a house that's a width of 70.9%. And on the screen is the survey that was prepared by Richard Hingos's office in April of 2023. Sorry, Tom. Okay, thanks. just went to sleep also. Okay, the second slide is a Google Earth aerial map that shows the surrounding area. Subject property is shown with a yellow rectangle. And as you can see, it's on the south side of Stanford Place. It's about 120 feet to the east of Cleveland Road, which is on the right side there. And it's the seventh property to the west of Ridgewood Avenue, which is sort of a major corridor in Glen Ridge. The next slide are a series of photographs. The top left was provided by the planning department staff. This is a view of the front of the house. This was taken approximately about a month ago. As you can see, the house is raised up from the level of the public sidewalk by several feet. There's a retaining wall just in front of the lawn before you get to the public sidewalk. So that's the front or north elevation of the existing house. You see the driveway on the left. The slide number 2 on the top right is the west side of the house where the one-story addition will be constructed or is proposed to be constructed, and this is as viewed from the northwest. And you can see there's mature vegetation blocking primarily the first floor of the existing house, plus the elevation change from the public sidewalk up to the first floor level of the houses along Stanford. Bottom left image that was also provided by the planning department staff. This is the west side of the house, and this is the area where a proposed kitchen addition is to be, where those 2 windows are. That area is to be bumped out by several feet. The bottom right slide is a view looking from the rear yard. So that's the view is taken from the existing patio, and it's looking at that left side or west side of the house where the kitchen addition is proposed. Next slide is proposed floor plans, and I apologize, we're supposed to enter these as exhibits.
This is an exhibit you want to have introduced?
Yes. So these are copies of the PowerPoint.
Okay, so we'll mark that as A1.
So these are exactly what's being shown on the screen. Okay, so the slide that's up now is slide number 4, which shows the existing and proposed floor plan, partial floor plan. The bottom left shows the existing kitchen and the rear patio, and the right side of the image shows the proposal, and you can see there's a proposed kitchen addition, which is to be approximately 6.5 feet from left to right or west to east, and 15.7 feet wide. So the goal is to gain a better interior layout plus additional natural light into the kitchen. The kitchen appears to be the original layout from 1925. It's not very functional. It's a little awkward. So the goal is to bump out the kitchen slightly to the west. Also, a small window seat bump out is proposed at the stair landing. New doors, a wider stoop, and windows are proposed facing the existing rear yard patio. And the existing rear yard patio will remain. It will not be touched. And then there's a curved stone retaining wall that leads from the patio to that existing side yard. And that will remain, but be slightly reconstructed to move the gate that leads from the patio to that side yard. I just need to point out from the previous image, that side yard, which is in the bottom left, is currently gravel with stepping stones. So it's a little used side yard. There's also the existing air conditioning condenser unit there. Okay, so next slide will be slide number 6. Excuse me, number 5. This is existing and proposed exterior elevation of that west side of the house. So we're proposing that new one-story addition. As you can see in the bottom right, it's that 15.75-foot one-story addition with a shed roof. The roof line will match the existing roof lines. The roof material will match the existing composition roofing shingles. And then the stucco on the exterior of the building, so the addition will have the exact same stucco and the same texture. Next slide is slide number 6. This shows the existing rear elevation in the bottom left, the elevation that faces the current patio. And then the bottom right shows the addition, the extent of the addition. So again, it's a one-story addition to the west side of the kitchen. The roof will match the existing roofing, the stucco will match the existing stucco, and then there'll be a new gate to replace the existing gate to provide access to that side yard within the existing wooden fence. The entire yard is surrounded by a 6-foot-high wood stockade fence. This west side, which adjoins the neighbor to the west, and then there's a wood fence separating the patio from this side yard. Next slide is site plan. The left side shows the existing the proposed site plan, and you can see the Glen Ridge Montclair border and creates that triangle at the front northwest section of this property. And again, 23% of the property is in Montclair. The right side of the slide shows an enlargement of the left side, shows the existing air conditioning condensed unit that will be relocated slightly to the west. Show the bump out for the window seat. The kitchen addition is crosshatched with those diagonal lines, and that's the subject of this application. And then the fence and relocated gate. And at the bottom it states the modified portion of the existing retaining wall. Next slide is slide number 8, which is an enlargement of the zoning chart that was in the set of drawings that was filed. The proposal conforms with everything except for the allowable width of a building on the property, which is to be maximum of 65%. It complies with, conforms with building coverage, it conforms with all of the setbacks, conforms with, even this new addition will have a 6-foot side yard setback, which is required in the R1 zone. And pretty importantly, based on the recent ordinance amendments, is that it complies with the maximum impervious coverage. So the impervious coverage on this lot is allowed to be 55%. The existing is 41.8, and the proposed is only 43%. So we're well under the allowable impervious. As I said, the existing house was developed around 1925, as was the garage. It has an existing nonconformity, so the front portion of the house closest to the street encroaches into that, or exceeds that allowable 65% building width. But once this ordinance was adopted, I think in 2006, to allow for a maximum of 65% of the lot width, and the purpose was to minimize, I guess, large houses on small lots. So this house was built in 1925, and it didn't comply then, and it doesn't comply now with that 65% maximum lot width. But due to the existing topography, as I said, the property slopes up from the street at Stanford Place up to the first floor level of the house. So due to the existing topography, the mature landscaping, the existing wood stockade fence, in my opinion, the addition will be minimally, if at all, visible from the street, and also from the adjacent house directly to the west. The addition is designed to look like it was always there, has the same stucco exterior, the similar roof lines, but it will only be 1 story tall. No other variances are required. I'll just go through some justifications, even though this is pretty straightforward. As for the positive, so it could be, the variance could be justified under Municipal Land Use Law 4055D 70C. So under the positive criteria for the building width, I believe the variance is justified and should be granted on both the C1 grounds and the C2 grounds. Under C1, the existing home and the internal layout, the garage, the driveway, the patio, the topography almost dictate where this addition has to be. The house, as I said, sits up several feet from the public sidewalk. So the one-story addition should be minimally, if at all, visible from the street. Designing the addition to conform would cause peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties by having to eat up and disturb valuable established patio and landscaped areas. The rear yard is actually beautiful with the patio that's been there and the landscaping behind it. So we're not disturbing the patio or the landscaping. Instead, we're going to go into that, partially into that west yard, which consists of gravel or stone and stepping stones. So it's logical and practical to add this one-story small addition to the existing west side of the house. We're not going to block any light, air, or open space. We're preserving favorable landscaped areas in the existing patio. We're working with the layout of the existing house, but improving that 1925 kitchen plan to lead us to justify the slight increase in the building width variance. As I said, and most of you know, the 65% maximum width is to prevent overbuilding on the site. The addition is set back from the front of the house. It's not up at the front corner, but it's set back. It's hidden by fencing, mature landscaping, and the shape and slope of the existing topography. And then under the C2 grounds, the purposes of zoning are advanced and the benefits substantially outweigh any detriment. By placing the addition where we are proposing it, it promotes a more desirable visual environment and prevents degradation of the environment through poor use of the land. Here we're placing the one-story addition on a level area where there already is just gravel and stepping stones, rather than a less suitable area or going into the backyard and losing desirable patio space or landscaping. It's also where the new construction will logically connect to the existing home. We don't perceive any detriment. In fact, we're preventing detriment, for example, by avoiding cutting into the yard or the established patio. I think the variance can be granted without causing any detriment to the public good. We're preventing detriment by using that existing gravel side yard rather than adding to the rear of the house in this case. We're locating the addition in a logical location to the existing layout of the house. We're maintaining the landscaped areas and the established patio. And as I said, there'll be minimal, if any, impact on neighboring properties. It's screened, the addition will be screened by mature landscaping, as you've seen from the photographs or if you've been to the site. Plus the lot is completely bordered by a 6-foot-high wood stockade fence. I believe that the variance can be granted without causing any substantial impairment of the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. The location of the house on the property is a legal structure that became non-conforming with the zoning change in 2006. So in 2006, all of a sudden, this was a non-conforming building because it exceeded the 65% of the lot width. The application conforms to the maximum building coverage and to maximum impervious coverage. The additions are attractive and are in keeping with the architecture of the home. Sorry if I rushed it, but that concludes my testimony.
Nothing further. Yeah, I have the homeowners here if necessary, but it's my only witness, yes.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Sionis. Just a couple of questions for clarification. So in terms of the addition, well, the current architecture has 4 windows that are facing west.
Current
If you
architecture.
look at slide number 5.
Actually, if you go just, yes. Slide number 5, there are 3 windows on the ground floor that face.
Well, I
Oh,
just
sorry.
counted the double as 2, it's
Right.
2 windows, so you have 4 windows.
4 windows.
And then the new addition will have 3 in that case.
3 on that west side,
So you're
correct?
eliminating a window
Correct.
that currently exists.
That's right.
So that's one of the areas where the stucco, you're just simply going to cover that space, is that?
That's correct.
And then the condenser is just being essentially slid over a few inches. It's bumped
Correct.
out.
Slid to the
but-
west a
But
bit
it's
in order
to the
to-
north,
Right,
right?
in order, to the west, actually, to
To
the
the
west.
west,
as you
okay.
Look at the floor plan, in order to create that bump out
Okay.
with a window seat at the bottom of the stairway.
All right. So, the current layout of the kitchen with the 4 windows presents the same view of the house to the west, I think is how you described it? Or is that to the north?
We're looking,
There's
this
a house
image is from the house to the left, to the west.
to the west, okay.
Right.
So you'll, with the bump out, you'll be moving, what was it, 2 or 3 feet further towards that house. Is that correct?
With that small bump out, the one
Yes.
that's labeled bump out for window seat.
Right. And do you anticipate that there would be any concerns by the neighbor in terms of, I mean, have there been any concerns about the windows, you know, sort of the view going back and forth between the 2 houses, because you're moving a little closer
No.
with the bump out?
As I stated, there's a 6-foot-high solid wood stockade fence
Mhm.
along the common property line. Also, I failed to mention that the neighbor to the west has their driveway directly along the common property line. So
Okay.
we're separated from the neighbor to the west by their driveway.
their driveway.
Plus the 6-foot-high wood stockade fence on the property line.
Okay.
6-foot setback.
Right, plus the 6-foot, as Mr. Chairman just whispered to me, there's 6-foot setback to the proposed addition.
Okay. And then you mentioned that this bump out would not be visible to the street.
Correct.
Is that because of the vegetation? I mean, if the homeowner had decided to change the vegetation, would this bump out then become more visible to the street?
No, because of that 6-foot-high wood stockade fence. Part of that vegetation's on this subject property, and part is, some of it is on the neighboring property. But also because of that slope of the land, where it slopes down several feet down to the sidewalk, you're looking up when you're standing on that public sidewalk, and you're looking above that stockade fence and above that vegetation that you can see in that top right photograph.
And then with the bump out, how much space then would there be between the bump out and the fence?
6 feet.
And so is the intent to continue to have some kind of a walkway back there? I know it's a patio now. What's the
It's-
intended use of
It's
that?
not really a patio, it's more just a walkway to get from the rear yard to the front yard, to walk along the side of the house. So there's just, stepping stones. So that will remain. There'll just be stepping stones in the existing gravel.
Okay, and the gate itself will be moved
And they'll be.
to accommodate that?
Correct, correct.
And then I guess the other question I have is just, in terms of the 65% lot width, is it your judgment that that is pretty consistent with the neighborhood?
I haven't studied the other houses, but based on the fact that this house appears to be typical of the neighborhood, and this house is non-conforming as of 2006.
Mhm.
But the majority of these houses appear to have been constructed around the same time. So I think to answer your question, it's typical of the neighborhood. Most of the houses are probably non-conforming as to that 65% rule.
No, I simply asked the question because looking at the neighborhood with the current structure of the building, and then with this bump out not being visible to the street, I mean, the house seems to be consistent with the neighborhood itself. I mean,
It is.
There doesn't seem to be anything that would sort of change the character of the neighborhood or,
Not at all.
that-
And as I stated, and I'll repeat, that I don't think this will be visible from the street at all.
and then the bump out is, will that bump out be entirely above ground, or will you be going down into the ground? And other issues of water? I mean, does that have any impact on the basement? Is there a basement in this house?
There is a basement. I don't believe there'll be any impact on the water. And I'm not sure if a decision was made if there'll be a basement or a crawl space under this bump out.
Okay, so that's to be decided.
Yes, once we do the construction drawings.
All right, thank you. No more questions.
Ms.
Thank
Harris?
you, Tom.
I have no questions.
Mr. Moore?
Hello. Have you thought about any additional drainage so that it doesn't run off into the neighbor's driveway? Has that been taken into consideration?
We have not, I mean, we're only indicating or we're hinting at gutters and leaders. We haven't shown where the leader will lead to at this point.
Okay.
But that's an important consideration, especially with the recent flooding.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Viera?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was actually my question, so,
Thanks.
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 I have no further questions. Are there any members of the audience who have questions, statements, testimony, anything whatsoever you want to say on the application? Now is your opportunity. Okay.
And did you notify your neighbor, were the neighbors notified?
Yes, Montclair and Glenbridge.
Thank
Okay. Mr. Trembleak, you have?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, and I think Mr. Moore was here other than for watching the PowerPoint not working in the beginning. So, Mr. McCulloch, you want to start the discussion?
Sure. I'm in favor of the application. That's all I'll say.
Ms. Harris?
I'm in favor also.
Mr. Moore?
I'm also in favor of the application with the restriction of making sure that there's drainage so that it properly runs off and doesn't impact the neighbor.
Mr. Viera?
I'm also in favor.
I'm also in favor of the application. I think, the evils that the ordinance was designed are not relevant to the addition that's proposed here. This is a relatively small addition that will largely be invisible from the street, and even with some removal, I think they're maintaining the required 6-foot setback to the neighboring property, as was indicated. The neighbor's driveway is between the house, their house, and I think this is not going to result in a substantial detriment to the neighborhood or a substantial impairment to the zone plan, and we should have the condition that the stormwater from the addition be directed so as to not impact the neighboring property to the west. Someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve this application with the restrictions stated by the chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next application of that is Zoe Scoullos, and I won't even begin to try Mr. Nissirios for an application for bulk variances to construct a two-family house on property located at 13 New Street. Property is in the R2 two-family zone and is designated on the township tax maps as Lot 75 and Block 3111. The proposal requires a variance from Montclair Code Section 34745B to permit a front yard setback of 0.5 feet, whereas 25 feet is required, side yard setbacks of 3.71 feet and 4.54 feet, where 6 and 10 feet are required. The proposal also requires variances from Montclair Code Section 347-45D to permit a rear yard setback of 21.95 feet, where 25 feet is required, and a variance from Montclair Code Section 347-20B to permit impervious coverage of 57.6%, whereas maximum of 55% is permitted, and a variance from Montclair Code Section 347-27A1 to allow fences of 6 feet in height in front of the extreme rear corners of the principal building where a maximum of 4.5 feet is permitted. And a variance is required from Montclair Code Section 347-101 to permit 2 parking spaces where 4 are required pursuant to the residential site improvement standards. Are taxes paid? Is the notice in order?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Vetter, you want to proceed?
Mr. Chairman, nice seeing you. Nice seeing you, members of the board. Mr. Sullivan, John Vettery, entering my appearance on behalf of the applicants Zoe and Thelmy Scoullos and Nissirios. We're here on an application tonight for the construction of a 2-family home. As you noted in Mr. Scobillia's letter, unfortunately, some work had started on the home with a less than scrupulous contractor doing some work to the home, not realizing that there were some major structural problems. So they were putting finishes on a home that didn't deserve to have any finishes on them, knowing that there were major issues there. Then when that was discovered, they hired a structural engineer, hired the architect who's here this evening, and made a determination that the home as is was just not worthy of saving, not able to be saved. It was just going to be a substantial destruction of the home and have to rebuild. We looked at the plan, looked at the site. As you're aware, there's an easement. We submitted that easement for review with respect to the parking and arrived at a plan that's really very consistent what I've been before the board on, as has Adam with the Shrek applications and the Dolgan applications, and has a lot of the same look and feel with its own unique spin on it as well. So tonight we have with us Adam Lasota, who's the architect who prepared the plans. We have consulted with the site engineer, David Fantina. He's not here this evening, but should the board see fit to approve the application, the applicants are willing to put in the necessary drainage and dry wells as we have done before. So with that said, our first and only witness this evening is Adam Lasota, who will
Mr.
testify in the area of
Lasota,
architecture.
would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
Yes, sir.
State your name and address, please.
Yes, it's Adam Lasota. My address is 1355 East Susquehanna in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Mr. Scobillia, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your position with the municipality.
Assistant planner and assistant secretary to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, Mr. Vettery?
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Lasota, if you would give the board the benefit of your educational and professional experience.
Yes, I graduated from NJIT over in Newark in 2012 with a B.Arch, which is a professional bachelor's of architecture. And I got my first license in this state of New Jersey in 2018. Subsequently, I've gotten additional licenses in other states, in Pennsylvania and Rhode Island, and all of them are in good standing.
Thank you. Okay, we offer him as an expert in the area of architecture. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Adam.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
You
Chairman.
know the
Thank you for the
routine.
board.
Let's take a look at the plans and go
Is that-
over the questions
is the
that Mr. Scobillia has put in his report.
Sure. Is that microphone on the stand as well? Is the microphone working?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so. Great. So here are the same drawings that you have in front of you as well. So let me position these a little bit better so that the board can see it. And these are the same drawings that were presented and submitted to everyone at the board. The only difference is that I included the impervious calculations that were included as an exhibit that Tommy had put online as well. So that information that I sent by email that got approved, I just added that little blurb onto these drawings. So here you can see that what we're presenting here is similar in flavor to what I've submitted before to the board that has gotten approved. Just up the street, actually 21 and 23 New Street. Tommy, I'd like to thank you too in your report. Actually, if you look at the last page of Tommy's report, you could actually see the newest image of 23 and 21 New Street that has gotten built. So thankfully, what we had came up with before and what was drawn, it was built, it did match the drawings, and it did create kind of a beautiful streetscape. It's what we've been trying to do in and around in the area. So similar in flavor to 21 and 23, we want to present 13 New Street. Again, this is a 2-family house that we're proposing. The layouts are going to be that the first floor and basement are going to be 1 unit, and then the second floor and the subsequent attic space will be also another unit. This is also the same way that we had set up both 21 and 23 New Street. So similar to those two, but we have a similar condition here where we have a very narrow lot. It's actually undersized both width-wise, length-wise, square footage-wise. You know, it's a very tight lot, similar to the other two lots, but even tighter. but yet we're still trying to make concessions in a way to be able to fit a proper two-family house that fits the neighborhood, that improves the streetscape, and also tries to hit the new impervious coverage marks that during the course of designing this project, the impervious coverage have not been enacted, but have since been enacted as law. So although we are asking for that variance, we did actually reduce the impervious coverage percentages with this proposal. So I want to go to page 2. So here on the second page, on the left-hand side, you have the existing survey, although it is turned the wrong way. The new street is facing actually planned north. You can see that there's only about 1.5 feet where the existing structure currently sits. And on top of that, too, they have much more concrete and impervious coverage at the rear of the property and also of the side narrow sidewalk. So with our proposal, we are actually looking to greatly reduce the pavement on that side area. And on top of that, we are actually removing all of the rear and even more of the parking side impervious coverage. Unfortunately, even with these reductions, we didn't quite hit the 55%, but we got close at 57.6. So although we are asking for that variance, we actually reduced the percentage of impervious coverage with this proposal compared to existing. On top of that, too, what we are proposing is that the back area be kind of the back foundation walls be straightened up and filled in at the back in order to give us enough depth for the proposed new construction, but without asking for any additional variances with regards to rear setbacks. On top of that, too, the biggest implications here is that we are improving the front setback issue. Currently, with that, like I mentioned before, the front setback is only about 1.5 feet. What we are proposing is that the main actually, the articulation at the front, the black articulation that you saw in the rendering earlier, is 5 feet from the front property edge. And actually, the main white wall of the proposed design is actually at 6.5 feet. So we are providing an additional front setback to help also step this building backwards in line throughout the street. Unfortunately, our neighbor to our left at 11 New Street is pretty much almost as forward as you can go. And the existing house is at that level. We're trying to push that back to create a better streetscape. So, and then with the parking on the right-hand side, we wanted to keep the 2 tandem parking spaces. We didn't want to provide any further detriment to parking. I know we are asking for a parking variance instead of, we wanted to have the 2 tandem. We want to keep the 2 tandem. We want to keep the existing curb cut, and those 2 parking spaces would be utilized by the second unit that occupies the second and third floor, mainly because they are the bigger unit with regards to the bedrooms. It's a 3-bedroom unit. So with that, I'm going to go to the next page, the third page with the floor plans. And as we explained earlier, the basement and first floor is Unit 1. It's a 2-bedroom unit. The basement does not have any bedrooms in it. We just have a home office at the back. Again, per the zoning regulations, the floor of the basement is too much of a difference between grade outside, so hence why no bedrooms in the basement. Then you on the first floor at the front, you have a staircase with a covered front porch that enters into a shared hallway and staircase with a staircase leading up to the second unit, which is the 3-bedroom unit that I mentioned earlier. Again, similar layout to the second floor. You got the 2 bedrooms in the back with the living space in the kitchen towards New Street. And then on the attic floor, you have the additional kind of whole master floor, calling it like the 3rd bedroom that has its own separate bathroom, its own separate kind of walk-in closet, so that can kind of be more of that private story. Again, it is upholding the regulation with regards to the size of the dormers. They do not exceed 50%, similar to what we had also proposed at 23 New Street. So again, we're not asking for any variances there either. And then moving on to the next page, onto the elevations. Here's that front elevation on the left-hand side that I mentioned earlier. Again, that black articulation element that sticks proud, 1.5 feet, acts as kind of a design element with the main white wall in the background being that 6.5 feet from the front yard setback. And again, and on the right-hand side, you're seeing the side elevation that is facing the 2 parking spaces. Again, a series of windows properly sized for the bedrooms inside. And on the next page, the rear elevation and the side elevation facing the kind of the narrow side yard. No windows on that side yard, mainly because of the distance from the existing property line. We don't want to propose any windows there because then, just because of the fact that that wall is going to have to be fire rated. The only windows that we are proposing is going to be up above in the attic space. So that way we try to utilize kind of all the percentage that we are allowed by code into that attic space to bring more natural light up there, as opposed to not so much natural light at the first and second floors. And then lastly, we just provided some diagrammatic sections here that we have in our previous applications to show we are trying to give some generous height as well, with 9-foot ceilings throughout, yet still staying under the 35-foot maximum height value per zoning. So,
Okay. If you, just a couple of notes on here, looking through Mr. Scabiglia's report, just point out where the HVAC units are.
yes. So, going to the second page, you'll see on the right-hand side the architectural site plan. The 2 HVAC units will be placed at the rear of the property, and they are going to be on a concrete pad that is 6 feet from the property line. We need to maintain that minimum 6 foot per the zoning ordinance.
And should the board see fit to approve the application, the applicant is willing to put new sidewalks in front of the home, landscaping, and new fencing.
Correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. You made reference to the fact that there would be no bedroom in the basement. What was the rationale for that?
Well, actually, in the Montclair zoning ordinance, if the height between the grade and the basement is more than, I believe, 42 inches, 3'6", can't do it. You'd have to ask for a variance.
Okay.
So we are keeping within this. We are not, technically, per the building code, you are allowed a bedroom in the basement as long as you provide egress properly, with an egress pit and egress window.
Right.
But per the zoning ordinance, you're not allowed to. That we would be asking for an additional variance. Since we're asking for a number of other variances, we decided to go against asking for that variance as well.
Okay. So, but with that said, I mean, there is a home office. There's
Correct.
a home office space there. Is there anything that would prevent an occupant from deciding to use that space?
How someone uses their home is strictly up to them. It does not have a closet space, nor can it be easily converted to add a closet space with a bathroom and the utility closet next door. On top of that, there is a utility closet right next to it, so it wouldn't be a comfortable room to sleep in. So no, I don't think it's primarily for that because, one, not much natural light in there. You got a pretty loud utility closet next door. Again, is it okay to use as a home office, put some headphones on? Absolutely. For a bedroom, I wouldn't see as a comfortable space for a bedroom.
Okay. So the structure that's currently there is obviously very narrow.
Yes.
And you're maintaining the same width.
Correct.
The amount of land around it in terms of the driveway space, again, is very narrow. I mean, I guess part of the reason why 2 spaces is about all you could accommodate there is because there seems to be a bit of a curvature. The further back you go up the driveway, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I can point out on the architectural site plan, the easement that John had mentioned earlier is this easement. We have this little sliver, this little triangle that thankfully the wide part is right on New Street.
Yes.
And we have that as a parking easement that this property can be able to utilize. And thanks to that little sliver, we're able to have the necessary width to have those parking spaces.
Okay.
And they're existing, and we want to just keep them and reuse them.
Okay. And those 2 parking spaces will be reserved for the tenant utilizing
Yes,
the
for Unit
upper
2, which
level.
is the second floor and attic space, yes.
So the tenant using the lower level would be on the street?
Would have to, yes,
Essentially,
would
yes.
have to have street parking, would have to apply for any permits that they need to.
Okay. All right. So the reason why we are where we are is because of the poor quality of, I guess, both the assessment of that structure and the poor quality of the construction work that was already commenced.
Correct.
All right.
They tried to fix something that They tried to put finishes on a structure that was compromised. Unfortunately, the homeowners, frankly, got dealt a bad hand when they hired a contractor who wasn't the most truthful. I think that's the nicest way I can put it. With regards to that, once another siding company had come in and removed the existing siding and showed the existing exterior sheathing, that's when the question marks started happening. And then just walking through the inside, I can attest to walking just through in the inside, even though there's nice painted sheetrock everywhere, nothing's straight, everything's crooked, everything's wonky, everything's wobbly, and just architecturally speaking, it is not structurally, it's structurally sound for now, and it's standing up on its own feet, but it's not the best solution, and it really should be addressed, and thus tearing it down to the foundations and rebuilding it is the best option.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I noted right away when I looked at the property was that the wall between 13 and 11 had an obvious buckle to it, and which I would assume is essentially irreparable.
Correct. And it's that same angle and that same structural instability is actually noticeable on the driveway side as well, between 13 and this existing garage. But again, it's in dire need of a rebuild.
Okay. So I mean, I have no qualms about the idea of demolition and putting up a new structure. I'm certainly supportive of that. The question that I have, because you made reference to the fact that there are other properties now that on New Street, and maybe Mission Street as well, I'm not sure, but that have similar architecture and utilize similar materials.
Correct.
And so the question that I want to pose to you is, what do you foresee as the durability of those materials for the long term? Just given the historic nature of Montclair and this zoning board has certainly attempted to preserve the historical character of the community. So, just sort of given your professional perspective in terms of the materials that you anticipate utilizing, what do you think would be the lifespan of this structure?
So the lifespan really kind of is dictated by those exterior materials that we propose, and especially at the front facades, we propose fiber cement, either board and batten siding or fiber cement siding. It's a much more durable product than vinyl siding. The lifespan of those, I'd have to look at the warranties from a lot of the manufacturers, but I believe it's roughly about 30 to 40 years, depending on the manufacturer, but those are usually the time frames we look at. So it's a much more durable product than, say, vinyl siding, which has a much lower kind of warranty. And we try to keep those materials and propose those throughout all the projects that you mentioned, including this one.
And just given the close proximity of properties on either side, were there to be a fire in either of those buildings, how vulnerable would this particular building be, given the materials?
Given the materials, but because of the proximity of the side exterior walls to the property lines, even per the residential building code, they have to meet a minimum of a 1-hour fire rating from both sides. So all of these homes are designed so that the exterior sheathing, anything outside of that sheathing will only help to aid and prevent fire from coming through, but it's really about the structural sheathing. That has to be fire rated. And from the inside, we have also a layer of fire rated gypsum board. So you're having fire protection from both sides per building code, which is something that, of course, we have to put in the final construction drawings in order for it to be approved by the building department. So all of these homes have that.
Okay. And then just circling back one more time in terms of the durability of the construction, you said approximately 30 to 50 years is what you would foresee. Would that be typical of new construction in not only in Montclair but other communities?
Typical,
as well?
yeah, that is typical new construction. Yes, that's kind of industry standard.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, can you talk about the foundation and how much of the existing foundation you're going to reuse?
Yes, so great question. The front foundation currently, where it's only that 1.5 feet, So a part of the existing home, and actually you can see in Tommy's report as well, I think there's a great photo from the front. You'll see that the front portion has a typical gable roof that sits proud and high of kind of the rest of the main roof. That portion of the home was built on an existing old front porch that was covered up and then built upon again with a second floor. So that entire foundation we are removing, because that is the foundation that is actually not in great shape. In addition to that, in the existing survey, you can see where the foundation walls actually kind of push inward. That foundation is actually also not in great shape either. And architecturally, having that bump in the back, and it would be much better architecturally to straighten out the walls. So to answer your question, the portion of the foundation that we are keeping as existing, and I'll go to the floor plans to help illustrate a little bit better. You can see the exterior foundation walls that are not post-shade in gray. Those are the existing walls that we are keeping. The front area, we are going to be rebuilding the new front porch, albeit, about as close to the street as what the existing one was. But mainly the back foundations where they stepped inward, that's the portion that we are rebuilding.
Okay, so the portion under the porch and that kind of bump out, that's all new,
Yes, that's new because of that existing is in bad shape.
but it doesn't extend beyond the existing?
No, it does not.
Okay.
Oh, actually, let me confirm that. Let me see my drawings here. No, the foundation of the front porches does come closer to the street than the existing, but it's only the porch and the staircase. It's not the actual structure itself.
Got it.
The existing structure, the existing two-story wall is 1.5 feet away. The new stairs is 1/2 foot away.
So the new, the new porch is how much further than the existing building is the new porch
It sits 1 foot closer
to the sidewalk?
to the sidewalk, but it's only the open porch. It's not the actual structure itself.
Okay. And I think your council mentioned something about new landscaping. Where would that go on the site plan?
So on the site plan, there is no landscaping up front, which currently there isn't
Okay.
any there. It would really be landscaping at the sides and the back that we are proposing. If on the architectural site plan, we are removing a majority of the concrete on the sidewalk, the walkway side, and we are removing the staircase and the landscaping at the back and a portion up to where the parking starts. So that area would be landscaped. Well, it would be sodded.
Okay, and then what's the material of the existing fence?
The existing fence is a wood stockade fence.
Okay, and that's to remain?
That's to remain, yes. There is a new fence that we are proposing between the parking and that side yard leading to the backyard. So that is that one little fence that we are proposing new.
Okay, and then the driveway pavement, is that new?
Yes, it's existing asphalt that needs to be repaved.
Okay, would you consider a pervious material for the driveway?
No, we weren't proposing anything that was pervious. We wanted to keep the impervious because we wanted to be able to, if we can reuse some of the existing driveway, we would like to, or if anything, just be able to strip down to a level, then kind of do a top surface and recoating and repaving. We're not going to rip up the existing driveway all the way down to, say, bare earth.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps a rear if the commissioner suggests maybe a rear portion of the driveway could be those permeable pavers. Maybe not the front, maybe the back.
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at
We've
designing
used
it.
those
Yeah.
successfully before.
Pervious pavers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you. Just looking at the planning considerations, would you please explain how the proposed tandem parking spaces would be used by future tenants?
And earlier with my testimony, the 2 parking spaces will remain the 2 spaces and we only be utilized by Unit 2, the unit that takes up the 2nd floor and the attic space. Unit 1 that takes up the 1st floor and the basement would rely on street parking.
Thank you.
Mr. Vieira?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following up on the report, item number 2 says that the property is undersized. So my question is, was the previous occupant, do you know if it was a single-family home or a 2-family home?
It was a single-family home.
Single family?
Previously, yes.
Okay, and you're proposing a two-family home?
Yes, and in the R2 zone, which does permit two-family.
Yeah, so there was no consideration to maintain the single family, basically a big house for one family as opposed to two apartments?
There wasn't consideration because on New Street, especially on that side of the street, all the homes are multifamilied. So it would be kind of like the one single family and
Yeah.
the sea of two families,
Yeah.
so.
And 21 and 23, the new ones are two families?
Correct.
Correct,
Correct.
okay.
It's more keeping urbanistically for it to be a two-family next to all the other two families that are on that street.
Yep. And was there also a consideration to, in a way, reduce the setbacks to, because I'm looking at the front yard setback, for example, which is 0.5, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little more, like having a little more buffer.
We did provide a smaller setback at the front because of the landing and the staircase to the front porch. But architecturally and kind of urbanistically, we positioned the main front wall of the facade 6.5 feet back, with that articulation being at 5 feet back. So even though technically, yes, it is a reduction in the front setback by pushing that front staircase forward, but architecturally, we are pushing it backwards. So visually, it'll be set backwards more from the street as opposed to what it previously was. So, but in order to make that concession, we needed to provide that staircase leading up into the home.
So essentially, the facade is set back.
Correct.
In a way, but the stairs are really what's.
Yeah, the
driving.
stairs function as a way to access the home, but
Yeah.
the primary facade is set farther back than what the existing house was.
Okay.
With that articulation being at 5 feet and the main white facade, which I was kind of showing the rendering. Right, with the black articulation being 5 feet forward and the main white facade, the primary facade being set at 6.5 feet back from the front lot line.
I guess the other question that I had was in regards to what was already asked before around the structure itself. So you said that obviously the structure is compromised, but the foundation, was there any issues with water intrusion that will require, to excavate and create some French drains or, pumping?
No, the existing foundation, the one that we had explained earlier, these main three walls in the basement that we show as existing, they're actually they're actually, from visual inspection so far, they look like they're in good shape and can be reused. It's those set in back foundation walls and the existing front porch foundations that look to be compromised. So that's why that's why we moved the design in this direction to say, look, these foundations are questionable, so let's not even get into this, not get into the minutia of, can we fix it? Maybe it's fixable, better off, let's just redo it properly. It was just kind of the approach that we took right from the beginning with this home because of those structural issues that we uncovered right from the beginning.
Yeah, but again, the question was, do you need additional, I guess, considerations to maintain, prevent this from happening again, really,
From the situation that we're currently in with the house, hold contractors more responsible and get the professionals involved earlier to be able to make these assessments before things get out of hand. I would love for that to happen more, unfortunately.
As the commissioner said, this will be a fully new structure.
Yes, no, this would be.
This will be a fully new
Except
structure,
for the
subject to
foundation.
permits.
Except
Yeah,
for-
even the foundation, as per the plans, is being enhanced as well.
Yes, we are going to enhance the foundation. We are going to actually add some courses of CMU on top of it to cap it and put some rebar in and through into the foundation to help brace it a little bit better. And by providing all new framing, we're going to be framing left to right. It'll help to create a diaphragm that'll help to stiffen the whole house and create better lateral stability than what's currently there, especially with the fact that it steps backward and then it has overhangs at the second floor. You don't need a degree in architecture to see that you don't really see a lot of inherent stability with the current shape that it's in.
Yeah.
By providing a nice clean box, there's something great to something simplistic as a box because it does have a lot of inherent just rigidity geometrically.
Just speak to a little bit about the question about the stormwater management and the sump pumps that will be installed in
No,
the
yeah, so-
basement, which currently neither are there.
Neither are there, but we will provide a French drain. We will provide sub pumps for this. We know that there is a water issue. We are experienced, especially in Montclair, with a lot of the water and the rainfall that happens here in town. So this house will have a proper French drain and sub pumps.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking because of the proximity of the other properties, this is really necessary.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
On top of that, too, even though we are asking for the impervious coverage variance, we are actually reducing. So currently, there's like 70-something% of impervious coverage. Even though we're putting an addition on the home, we are reducing the total impervious coverage. So hopefully, with that reduction, hopefully will provide at least a little bit of relief to the immediate site and its surroundings.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, your recent calculations show 57.6%.
Correct.
And you need to get to 55, so maybe with the pavers, impervious pavers, you might get it.
Potentially, yes, yeah. We'd have to run the numbers, but yeah.
Okay. And lastly, I guess the other question was around the fence, because you're requesting a variance from what's a 4.5 to a 6-foot fence. And that's just because of what?
Because of even though we are asking for that 6-foot fence right against the parking, because of it being right next to the parking. And we are providing that fence that does face forward is set, almost about 2/3 back of the structure. And we are asking for that 6-foot fence because of the fact that cars will park pretty much right to it, and we wanted to provide that visual barrier and a stoppage for the cars and for, the tenants there as well.
Okay. All right.
Also, with regards to the upper units, we'll probably get the parking space, but then the backyard will probably be able to be used by the first floor and basement. So it also helps as a separation between the two.
And to clarify, there's another 6-foot fence proposed on the north side of the house where the trash receptacles will be kept.
Yes, this one here, and just to help answer that point, yeah, with all the trash receptacles and everything there, slightly taller fence just to kind of keep that. We all have trash. We all have to deal with it in one way or another. But if we don't have to see it from the street, I think at least that's a little bit of an improvement.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, I'll continue with the fence.
Mm-hmm.
The fence that's existing on the south and east sides, is that the neighbor's fence?
On the south and east sides, that is a good question. I don't know whose fence it is. The fence is right on the property line between.
Looking at the Hingos' survey, I'm not sure who that fence belongs to.
It is showing the fence right on the line.
Well,
Yeah.
part of what confused, and ultimately I'm going to the fences you're proposing, but the survey refers to a chain link fence, but what's shown on page 7 of Tommy's report is a wooden fence.
So you can actually see from Tommy's report, too, that the photos of the backyard shows that wood stockade fence installed on the perimeter. So between when the survey was done and now, a wood stockade fence was put up.
And
Yeah, the survey is dated 2021, so it's been about, 2 years? 2.5 almost, yeah.
okay.
And we would like to just keep that fence. It was recently done, it's in good shape, and
Certainly do not want it removed. Okay. And Mr. Vettery, to some degree, this is going to be for you, because I'm confused by the easement, and then I'm further confused by what's shown on the proposed architectural site plan. But let me start with the easement. The easement that was given to us does not define the area of the easement. It says, let me start there, but on the architectural plan, I thought I saw something saying what the area, I did see something saying what the area of the easement was.
yeah, it is listed as 180 square feet on the
And that doesn't seem right to me. In terms of, but I'm trying to, and it relates partially to the fence question, partially to your drawing in terms of you have, if you look at your drawing at the rear of the property on the side, you have existing fence at lot perimeter to remain, but you're pointing, the arrow is pointing to what I assume is the easement area, not the lot line.
One of the arrows is pointing to the line of where the easement is, correct? And that is where the fence currently is on the easement line, not on the property, not on the subject property line.
Okay. And again, don't want to touch the fence, so I'm going to ignore the question I might otherwise ask about that. But the purpose of the easement is for a driveway, and that whole rear triangle is no longer for a driveway. And Mr. Vettery, more for your clients, not relevant to our decision as to what is the status of that area if it's not being used for a driveway.
So what you're referring to is on the proposed architectural site plan, the triangular area in green?
Yes,
That's
it's not
that's-
green in what we have, but
Yeah.
yes.
So and I agree with you. I was not the scrivener of the driveway
I
easement.
recognize it.
Thank you.
And-
I think the
And one of
spirit-
the scriveners was certainly not a land use lawyer. And
So typically you'd have a meets and bounds description that would describe that. We don't have that here. I think the spirit of the agreement is that it is a driveway easement, but I recognize your point that a portion of that is now going to be green and not used for driveway. I don't think that it, does anything to impact the easement, the fact that we're not using it all as a driveway.
I'm, for my immediate purposes, at this point, you should talk to your clients about this ambiguity in the existing easement, and I don't know if they're in a position to talk to the neighbor who granted it, but it might be in everyone's best interest to actually have a meets and bounds description of what the easement
Agreed,
is. 'Cause-
agreed. And I believe there's a friendly relationship there, even though I believe both parties inherited this agreement.
Okay, back to the fence. So there's this existing wooden fence, and you're proposing a vinyl fence at the end of the driveway. Why?
That was an error on my part. We would like to revise that to have a wood fence in similar nature to what is currently there.
I guess, and, given the narrow distance, I'm not altogether sure the privacy argument for 6 feet versus 4.5 feet. Certainly, the car headlights coming in are going to be blocked. You want to go again why you think the 6 feet's necessary?
It was mainly for the separation, but if
Do you know the height of the existing fence?
6 feet.
Okay. Then going to the other side for the screening for the garbage cans, I've not seen many garbage cans that are taller than 4.5 feet. Is there any reason to have the 6 foot on that side?
From that side, no. So we can revise and be able to show a 4.5-foot fence on the side where we would be keeping the trash cans.
So the clients are fine with 4.5 for both.
The sump pump, where is the outlet for the sump pump going to be?
That is a good question.
So I believe Mr. Fantino is not here this evening. We have consulted with him. I think the intent was that it ties into the driveway.
It'll most likely tie into the storm drains and tie into the drywall system that we are going to be propose on this site.
That creates a different volume in a different way than the rainfall is, and we'll do a condition, but it's going to have to give some consideration as to how he's going to design the dry well.
Chair, it's actually shown on the basement plan, under the stair.
That's where the pump it will be.
Are you looking for the outlet?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the outlet we did not show on our drawings, no. But we will, yeah, we'll work with the board and work with our engineer for that one.
I think Mr. Fantine has designed most of them in that area.
Yes.
So, and he'll work with the township with respect to having that done properly.
You indicated that to the extent necessary, the sidewalk in the front of the house would be repaired.
Yes. Yeah,
Any
we
other
will. we will-
questions from board members? Okay. Just for the record, are there any members of the audience who have questions, testimony, statements, anything you want to say? Technically, my view is partially blocked by that, though I know it's fine. But is there anyone in the audience hiding out in the hallway who has any comments on the application? This is your opportunity to speak if you have questions or testimony. Okay, Mr. Federi, you have anything further?
Just a very brief summary, and I think as we have worked through some of the questions of the commissioners this evening, we're eliminating the requested variance for the 6 feet for the fence, and I don't know if we'll get to 55% with the permeable pavers that Commissioner Harris recommended, but we may get close, so there's an improvement there. We are making improvement to the front yard setback, although a variance is still required, and the other two, the side yard and rear yard setbacks still persist. So we don't have a planner with us this evening, but if Mr. Steck or another fine planner were here this evening, I think they'd probably say that we have, we may have some C1 elements here with the narrowness of these lots in this area, but, there's a lot of benefits to this. Aesthetics, we didn't mention it tonight, but the concrete, I don't know why there's so much concrete on this site. They must have had a purpose for it, but that's all being removed, and it's all broken up, and it's in terrible disrepair. So there's aesthetic improvements, there's better setbacks, there's French drains, stormwater management that doesn't exist now, and we currently have a vacant and unsafe structure that will be eliminated with a brand-new structure, and hopefully the applicants can move forward. They've learned a lot of lessons on this, which were tough pills to swallow, and looking forward to being able to get this done with a competent contractor. And for those reasons, I hope the board sees fit to approve the application.
We'll start discussion with Ms. Harris.
I'm in favor of this application, understanding that the variance for the fence is no longer needed. I'm not quite sure how we word the impervious coverage variance in terms of installing the pervious pavers in a portion of the parking lot, but I'm okay with the other variances.
Mr. Moore?
I'm in favor of the application. I think that it won't serve a detriment to the area. It will only add value. And I also will stick with the restrictions stated by my colleague.
Mr. Vieira?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also in favor of the application, but I would like to, I guess, add the conditions of the stormwater because of the plan is not showing the location of the discharge, where dry well or any other considerations for stormwater will be on the site. And yeah, other than that, I'm in favor.
Mr. McCullough?
I'm also in favor of the application, given the concessions that have been offered and the recommendations that have been expressed in this conversation. So I'm supportive of this. I would hope that at some point we could think about, how do we look at new construction through the lens of sort of, again, the historical character of the community. 30 to 50 years is not really a long time. And, this is a neighborhood. I mean, it's essentially become a whole development. It's fast becoming that. I mean, when you sort of look at the number of buildings that are there. And so I think, that that kind of a lifespan is not necessarily consistent with where I think we'd like to be heading as a community, but that's a comment.
Tommy, I don't know how this is going to carry over with your departure, but if you could make a note that for a recommendation next year that, and we'll worry exactly how to do this, but that the township look at the Mission New Washington Street neighborhood in terms of the characteristics of the neighborhood and what's desirable, because, you know, we are lot by lot transforming the neighborhood, and in some ways very much for the better, but it would be better if someone took a comprehensive look rather than our just looking at this lot by lot. Okay. I'm also in favor of the application. I think, you know, they're here because of unfortunate circumstances with the condition of the house and being misinformed, to use a polite word, by their original contractor, and this results in the house having to be, other than portions of the foundation, reconstructed. I think they've justified the front, side, and rear yard setback variances that are requested. Those setbacks are consistent with what otherwise exists in the neighborhood. They've justified the parking variance. I mean, there's a reality, that's what they can accommodate, and that's what's been accommodated here, and so I have no problem with that. Let me go through the conditions. One thing I didn't do is appropriate shrubbery should be installed between the HVAC units and the lot to the north, that they repair the street sidewalk as necessary, that we're not approving the fence variance, and the fences that are constructed be of wood similar to the fence on the property line, that the stormwater be managed so as to not impact neighboring property owners, including the discharge from the sump pump be maintained on the property, not discharged to the street, and that, and I don't want to specify that a portion, the rear portion of the parking area be constructed with permeable pavers. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, someone want to make a motion?
I move approval of the application with the modifications as recommended by the chair.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Terrific, thanks so much.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
great
much,
evening.
Me too.
We do have an application coming in on 13 New Street, so we'll take the comments
sorry.
back and,
8 Washington.
yes,
8 Washington.
right.
This is
I'm
our
sorry,
street.
8 Washington, thank you.
Hopefully you're not coming back on this property again.
No.
I'm sure your clients don't want to see us.
It'll be 8 Washington, which is right next to 10 and 12, which the board has previously.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
The next application is that of Northern Property Associates LLC and Jack Gambino and Rosario Gambino for property at 91, 95, and 99 Maple Avenue. This is an application for site plan approval to convert the existing commercial building located at 91 Maple Avenue to a showroom and warehouse used in conjunction with a plumbing supply business operated by Montclair Supply Corporation in the building located at 99 Maple Avenue. The property is located in the R3 Garden Group Zone and is designated on the township tax maps as block 4106, lots 10, 11, and 12. The applicant, in addition to site plan approval, has applied for the following variance, a variance pursuant to NJSA 40:55D70D2 to expand the commercial use on the property, which is a legal non-conforming use in the R3 Garden Group Zone, a variance from Montclair Code Section 347-27A1 to permit a 5-foot-high fence along Maple Avenue sidewalk, whereas the ordinance provides for a maximum fence height of 4.5 feet and a variance for Montclair Code Section 347-271B to permit a 7.4-foot retaining wall, including the attached railing, whereas the ordinance provides for a maximum height of 4.5 feet. Are taxes paid, and is the notice in order?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Trembulac, as you see, we are 5.
Yep.
And we have no expectation that the 6th member we were expecting is going to arrive at this point in the evening. How do you wish to proceed?
We'd like to proceed, Mr. Chair, and hopefully we'll go to a vote tonight, or we might decide at the end. I think we can present the case concisely. I'm going to run into witness problems if we carry it over, so I'd like to go forward and present our 3 witnesses tonight. And then
Okay, you want to give your appearance?
Sure.
And proceed.
Alan Trembulac appearing on behalf of the applicants, Jack and Rosaria Gambino and Northern Property Associates LLC. This application involves 3 contiguous properties located at 91, 95, and 99 Maple Avenue. Jack Gambino, sitting to my right, and his wife purchased 99 Maple Avenue in 1992. In 1993, they obtained variances from this board to permit the property to be utilized as a plumbing supply business. It's actually a mixed-use property, but obtained a variance to operate a plumbing supply business in this building. It's also important to note that in connection with that approval, this board granted a parking variance to allow 8 parking spaces on this property, whereas 20 were required under the ordinance. That goes back to 1993. Since that approval, Jack has operated Montclair Supply Corporation continuously for the last 30 years on at this property. As I said, the building is a mixed-use building with 2 apartments on the 2nd floor. Approximately, I guess about 2 years ago, Mr. Gambino, through a limited liability company that he controls, acquired the 2 properties adjacent to 99 Maple on the north side of 99 Maple, namely 95 Maple Avenue and 91 Maple Avenue. At the time the properties were acquired, they each contained a vacant and dilapidated building. 95 Maple at the time contained an abandoned 2-family building under construction with Tyvek wrapped around the exterior of the building. Thankfully, that building has since been demolished in accordance with a demolition permit approved by the Historic Preservation Commission. The other property at 91 Maple Avenue contains a vacant 1-story commercial building, which for many years was the home of Brantley Tire Service, basically an auto repair, primarily limited to tires, I guess, and operated, I think, for several decades at that location. And Mr. Gambino purchased these properties with the intention to expand his plumbing supply business, operated from 99 Maple. And essentially, the plan that's before you this evening proposes to convert the old Brantley's Tire Service to a showroom and warehouse or storage area for the plumbing supply business, provide substantial improvements to the appearance of that building, and to utilize the vacant area between the 2 buildings for additional parking, which would allow for, I think, 10 additional parking spaces, which would provide 18 parking spaces, whereas there are only 8 spaces currently on the property as per the board's 1993 approval. As you'll see in here, we're also proposing various other improvements, including drainage, landscaping, new paving, et cetera. The application, the relief we're seeking tonight, first is site plan approval. Secondly, we need a D2 variance to expand the nonconforming use. We need one additional C variance for retaining wall height. Initially, we were cited for 2 other variances, one for fence height, and we're eliminating that variance and reducing the fence height to 4.5 feet, which is permitted under the ordinance. And again, we were cited for a parking variance, but I don't believe a variance is triggered, given the fact that the existing building was approved for 8 spaces. The converted building that will be a warehouse only triggers an additional 3 parking spaces required under the ordinance, so the parking requirement for the combined properties increases from 8 to 11, and as I've indicated, we're providing 18 spaces. So I don't think we need a parking variance. There are a few design waivers in addition. So I have, 3 witnesses to present this evening, starting with Mr. Gambino, followed by John Guadagnoli, project architect, and William Stimmel, who will provide engineering and professional planning testimony. So, having said that, if we could swear in Jack Gambino.
Mr. Gambino, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
My name is Jack Gambino. I live at 1 Ridge Road in Roseland, New Jersey.
Mr. Scoullos, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
Would you state your position with the township?
Assistant Planner, Assistant Secretary to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay. All right, Mr. Gambino, are you an owner of the property located at 99 Maple Avenue?
I am.
And how long have you owned that property?
I've owned that property since 92,
Okay.
1992.
Okay. Can you just describe the existing building on the property and how it's currently used?
The building is a split-use building. I have 2 residential units on the 2nd floor, and the 1st floor is when you walk through, you'll come to a counter. It's a service counter, and behind the counter is inventory. We run a plumbing and heating supply business, so all the inventory is in shelves lined all the way to the back. So the customers come in and they're strictly located in the front, which is approximately 10 by, say, 20, 25-foot area, and then the rest of it is all inventory. Now that's on the 1st floor and the lower basement area, same thing. It's all inventory stock.
So the basement area is just essentially storage?
Storage.
Okay. And the name of the business?
It's Montclair Supply Corp.
Okay. And who are your customers typically? Are they individuals, or are they plumbing contractors, or?
Well, we service both the plumbing contractor, the home improvement contractor, and residents who come in from the township that are looking for plumbing, do-it-yourself projects in their home. But we mainly supply to the plumbing contractor who's in town. I don't know if you all realize, but years ago, Ridgewood Corporation used to be in town, and they moved out. They went for the 3% sales tax at Orange. They left a big gaping hole in there. That's where I came in. And we've been there since, selling plumbing supplies to all the locals and all the contractors.
Okay. As part of this application that's before the board this evening, are you proposing to make any changes or alterations to the building at 99 Maple?
None, other than the doorway on the side of the building. And that doorway is just so it would make things a lot easier on my employees. We can shift materials around. So the bulky items that are up on the 1st floor can now go down to the basement area and go out that side door. Same thing with bringing them in, they can go into that side door without having to carry stuff or having to go up and down staircases all day long.
And that basement door would be on the side of the building, the north side of the building?
Yes.
Adjacent to where the 2-family house used to be?
Exactly.
Okay.
Toward the rear of the building.
Okay. Okay. And that's the only change you're that involves
That's the
99
only change.
Maple. Okay. We talk about, just talk about, if you can, parking, how the parking is currently provided for 99 Maple, where it's located.
Well, 99
So-
Maple, once, if we get an approval here, I can re-angle the parking spaces again to the fence line, and we can put the parking spaces, well, let me start from the beginning. Right now, we have two trailers there in the back. One of the trailers will be removed permanently, because now I'll have access to the warehouse, to the new warehouse. So the product that's sitting in that container will now go indoors in 91 Maple. So that container can be removed from the property at this point. Any exterior supplies that are on the outside of the building that are there, they also will come out of there, and they'll also go into the building next door. So then we'll be able to put 3 parking spaces directly up against the storage container that's there now, and we'll have the other 5 parking spaces angled against the fence line.
And that's the way it's shown on Mr.
Yes.
Guadagnoli's plan, the
Exactly.
angled parking spaces.
Exactly.
Is that the way parking has been handled previously
For the last 30 years, that's the way it's been.
with those angled parking spaces?
People pull in, they pull in on an angle, and they pull right back out of there.
How do they get out? Do they
They've been
just back out
they've been
onto?
backing out of there for 30 years, and I've never had an accident, a police report, a problem. It's never been a situation for us.
Okay.
But now, with the room, if I can get into the other building, I can now have the angle parking spaces, the other 3 parking spaces up against the container, which will leave us 41 feet in which to pull out, go into the back and make a full K-turn and pull straight out.
So cars would not have to
They
back
wouldn't
out
have to
onto
at that
Maple,
point.
they have the option to pull up and make a K-turn. And
Exactly.
I'm sure Mr. Guadagnoli will explain that when he's discussing the plans, but, okay. Who parks on the side of the building, the angled parking spaces? Customers,
Right now,
employees?
most of my customers park there.
Okay.
My employees right now have to find parking out on the street right now. But once we have approval, my employees will be able to park in the lower parking lot of the 91-95 property.
Okay. All right, now, let's talk about the 2 properties you recently purchased at 95 and 91 Maple, which you purchased in the name of Northern Property
Yes.
Associates LLC. That's your company, correct?
Yes, Northern Property Associates, I am the manager.
Okay. All right, talk about briefly how those properties were utilized in the past and exactly what you're planning to do.
Well, 91 Maple Avenue, that was the old Brantley Tire Shop. Mr. Brantley ran that business, his father ran it before him, they were there for years. It was, they did the light mechanic work, and they did changing tires. I don't think that we'll have half of the traffic flow that he had at the time, because that's gonna be just strictly storage. And we're planning on putting a small showroom in the front of that, which is gonna be by invitation. So we don't have that type of business where we have that residential or that contractor showing homeowners. We haven't developed that yet. So I don't think that that's gonna be something that's gonna be taking off crazy for us. It's gonna be by invitation. Because a showroom, it's small. If you had a larger showroom, then you could let people come in and graze around. Small showroom, you have to do it one at a time by appointment. That's the only possible way.
All right, so it's not going to be a retail facility there?
No, not
People
at that
aren't gonna go in-
location, no.
Right,
They'll go there, look at what they need, and then, once the deal is made, then they'll be able to go next door and pay for their products and handle it from that point.
okay. So you're going to have this display area in the front of the building, is that
Yes.
correct? And then what would the rest of the building be utilized for?
And the rest of the building is gonna be strictly shelving and merchandise that's gonna be overstock, that's gonna be inside that area.
Okay. And you're planning to make some improvements to that building, and dress it
Yes,
up a
as you
bit?
can see on the plans, what
Yeah.
we've
Right,
done.
okay. And then what about 95 Maple? What was previously there?
95
And what are
Maple.
your plans for that property in the middle between the 2 buildings?
Well, part of purchasing 91, there was no access to get to the rear yard of that property. Because the property line came right alongside the right side of the property. So when I bought that property, I knew I had an issue going on. And I think it was a month later, I believe, or 2 months later, the 95 property had a fire. And the second floor had burnt out the back section of the building. And I believe that was during the COVID time. And what had happened was Mr. Chang, the owner of the two-family home that was there on 95, he passed away, leaving the home to his son. And his son came to me and said, I want nothing to do with this. So at that time, it was a great deal for me because I was able to get the property, which I have access now behind 91, and I wanted to make a parking lot. So that's why we went in front of the HPC to see if we can get permission to take the two-family home down so we can make a parking lot area there. And
Okay.
we were awarded that, so that's what we're looking for.
And the house is now gone.
And the house is now gone, definitely, yes.
Okay. I'd like to discuss with you the 6 planning conditions, or 5 of the 6, I guess, planning conditions noted in the report from Mr. Scoullos. The first comment is the applicant must communicate with the Engineering Bureau for approval of any changes proposed in the right-of-way. And you understand that there's a planting bed that's proposed?
Yes.
That's actually not on your property, but in the right-of-way?
Yes.
And you understand that anything you do in the right-of-way requires the approval of the town or the
Yes,
engineering
I do.
department? And I assume you're willing to comply with that?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
The reason why I wanted to do that, Alan, is because if you look at page 13, inside here, there's a picture that will show you.
You're talking about page 13 in Mr.
Yes.
Scoullos' report?
Yes.
Mhm.
My page 13 is a little different. I guess this would be page
12.
Page 12. If you look at page 12, the first building you see is 99 Maple Avenue. And you'll see the railings that go to both the 99A and 99B apartments. Those are the doors that are located there. If you look beyond the far ramp, you'll notice another set of gates. They used to surround the 95 Maple Ave two-family home that was there. So that's always been bumped out for years. So what I'm planning on is if I can utilize that space behind, that goes up from the ramp to the building for the planter, that wouldn't impede on the sidewalk area. It wouldn't impede and nobody tripping over it because everyone's walking on that sidewalk straight on through. And I don't have a picture of the homes before you get to the first building here, 99, but you'll have stoops and doorways also that are bumped out at that point. So for 30 years, everybody's been walking down the sidewalk, and I figured if we can utilize that space there, then when I put the fence, I could put the fence would go from the face of 99 to the face of 91 Maple without having to bring it any further down that grade. It'll be further up the grade.
All right, and you're looking to provide some landscaping as an
Oh, definitely.
improvement? I mean, that's what would be in the
That's
public
exactly-
right away.
There would be whatever
Okay,
plants the state requires us to put in.
okay. All right.
I understand they don't like boxwood, so.
The second planning consideration comment is a recommendation that the 3 lots be merged into a single lot.
Well,
And I know you.
truthfully, I really don't want to do that. Number one, 91 and 95, it's under an LLC, owned by myself. 99 is owned by my wife and myself.
Yeah,
We are in our 60s, and we own a plumbing supply. And right now, plumbing supplies, they're struggling. One branch operation especially, and that's all I am, is a one branch operation. Now, if something happens, I want to be able to say, okay, I need to get out from under whatever I'm under. I want to be able to say I can at least sell a property. I can stop the operation, I can close the door up if I had to, you know what I mean? But if I merge them all together, now I'm stuck with this whole lot that I might have to sell.
Are you willing to merge 91 and 95 Maple?
Definitely, that is my plan.
But you want to keep 99
99
separate?
separate,
And there is, currently, the ownership is separate?
Yes.
Okay. And just on that comment, Mr. Chairman and Board, you know, we're willing to provide cross easements to, you know, because we're going to be sharing the parking. There'll be some, you know, drainage facilities that are shared, you know, among the properties. And I guess we'll also probably need an easement to, you know, for utilizing the basement door on 99. So we can really provide for the properties to be used in the manner we're proposing without merging all three lots. So that's what we're proposing. The next comment deals with drainage inlets. I'm going to leave that one for Mr. Stimmel to address. The fourth comment is a recommendation that parking spaces to the rear of 91 Maple be shifted to the west and the south to provide a required 4-foot planting buffer along the east and north property lines where the parking would be. Can you address that?
Yeah, I think, well, I guess the best thing would be that if you look at the plan and you look at the layout of the 91, 95.
I'm talking about it here.
Yeah. Which one do you better look at? No, it was on John's plan.
Well, this is John's plan.
Yeah.
You know, this is Maple here, so.
Yeah, that's what. Right here? Yeah. I just want to show you around, John. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, folks, I have a habit of not using my glasses when I should be wearing them. If you look at the property, you'll notice from 91, you'll notice that when you come around the back of this property, you have a rear garage right up against the property line here. Then you have, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 feet here, then another garage here. Then you have another curb line here, and then another garage here. From here to here, there are 4-foot, 5-foot round trees, bushes, shrubbery. I mean, you can hardly see any other property that's there. Now, I'd be willing to talk to those homeowners if they would allow me, if I can get up to the property line to give us more space, because when you come down that driveway with a, say, a 40-foot delivery truck, the whole point I'm trying to achieve here is to be able to pull straight down on an angle and back right up against the building where that loading dock's gonna be. And if I come in 4 feet or 2 feet or anything there, we're gonna have a really hard time trying to navigate that truck to be able to back up against the building. So if we're worried about people looking through there or worrying about being too close to the line, I would be willing to talk to the neighbors, and I would put whatever coverage, bushes, whatever they need in that whole area to stop, to make it look better for them.
Okay, but you're concerned about giving up the room in the parking area?
Oh, definitely, because
Yeah.
they make it tighter.
Okay. Comment number 5 talks about privacy slats in the existing chain link fence at the rear of 99 Maple.
Yep.
Okay.
I will be replacing, right now, we have a screenage that we've had there for years. And we'll replace it with the vinyl slats in the fence.
Is that
And that would be
to the
complete.
rear
That
as
would
well
be-
as
that
along
would
the
be-
sideline?
That would be the entire rear and the sideline
For 99?
for 99.
Okay. All right. And the last,
In 99, there's an existing fence that's there now. We will remove the screening that's on that, and we'll replace it with vinyl slats that go into the fence all the way around.
which is what Mr. Scabilia recommended. So, and then the last comment was to explain how snow removal is handled
Okay.
currently. So how do you handle it for 99 Maple, and
For
how do you propose?
30 years, I've been shifting snow in that whole area. everybody down there knows me because I clean out everybody's aprons. I take the Bobcat and hop into it, and I spend hours cleaning every driveway, every apron, sidewalks, whatever I can. We distribute snow up on the top, not even from the yards. From the yards, we take it and we'll be pushing it into where the parking spaces are. What do you do when you have heavy snows? It's not an easy place unless you haul it out of there. But we do move it around. And to date, I really have never had an issue with anybody having a problem with what we do.
Might lose a parking space or two.
We'll definitely lose a parking space, without a doubt.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
And you propose to handle the snow removal for the 91, 95
properties.
the same way?
Same way.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. The only other thing I want to do before I forget is I handed out to Mr. Scabilia copies of the 1993 resolution of this board, which I just want to be part of the record since we're relying upon it. A1?
That's the 1993 zoning board resolution.
Thank you. So again, that completes my examination of Mr. Gambino.
Mr. McCullough, do you have any questions?
Yes. So, Mr. Gambino, thank you for your testimony. It's very thorough, very helpful. As one of those people that used to walk up and down that sidewalk every day trying to catch the train, I'm very familiar with much of what you described. I want to focus first on the area behind 99, which is the current supply company, right? Okay. So you anticipate there are two large containers in the rear of the building currently.
Yes.
One will remain and one will be
The
removed.
long one to the north side will remain. The short one that's, as soon as you pass the building in the back, the one to the left right there, that one will come out.
Okay. And what is the purpose of those containers?
The purpose of containers are, the long container houses all our cast iron and steel Malibu fittings. It's strictly fittings. The other one has all the long lengths of pipe. Because we sell pipe in 10-foot lengths and in 20-foot lengths.
Okay.
So the 20-foot lengths are stored in that container right now.
All right. So you anticipate that with the development plan, as you have envisioned it, that with that one of those containers being removed, two things will be accomplished. One will be more parking availability.
Yes.
For customers, which includes not only private vehicles, meaning sedans, but vans and that trucks small trucks that are utilized by your contractors, and then access to loop around the building so that people don't have to back out onto Maple Avenue.
Yes, they can, as I explained before, the angled parking spaces, they can back out, they can pull to the back of the building, make a left, and then do a complete K-turn and pull straight out.
Okay, so they're not really going around the building and
No,
coming
not going
out through
around the building.
95.
Yeah.
They're
They're
turning
gonna be
around
making
so
a
they can
K-turn, go out.
Go out to Maple Avenue forward. So now, the back of this property sits very high. This is a very
Yes.
high elevation in comparison to the neighbors behind.
Yes.
So with the additional parking there and with the K-turns, how do you intend to make sure that customers don't, I mean, are you planning to put curbs or something there to block them so that they can't potentially go over that cliff? Because that's basically what it
For
is.
30 years, it's been that way. and
Yeah.
No one's ever had an issue. I mean, the company trucks park there now.
Right.
You know, we've never, like I said, never had that, I never had that thought, you know, because we never had that problem, not even a near miss to say, oh, you know what, we need to do something. You know, I mean, listen, if I see it becomes, that's a problem for me, I'm the first one to take the initiative to do something. Now, I think that if I had to do something, it would be quite costly, because that entire property is being supported by gabion baskets. And I don't know how, you know, we'd have to drive something from the top all the way down to at least, I don't know, 100 PSI soil to support that, you know?
Okay.
I think that would be very difficult. I mean, we could put a lot of signage, you know, warning signage, you know what I mean? Steep drop, you know, deep, you know, steep drop on the other side of the fence. But, and truthfully, those parking spaces that are, the 3 that are gonna be up against the container, I'm gonna designate them for my 2 tenants that are upstairs.
That's it, okay. Yeah, it's, I mean, you have the screening back there now, and you're gonna put the vinyl slats in the fence. But I think most people would be very surprised, you know, that there is such a huge drop on the backside of the building, because people don't go back there.
Yeah.
And so now you're looking to presumably have more individuals or individual customers as opposed, I mean, you want to continue to maintain, obviously, contractors, but you anticipate having an increased number of individuals that will...
I wouldn't say that I'm having an increase of customers.
Okay.
Again, you know, I did this because I know that that area is congested, and I wanted to get people, get at least my people and contracts that are coming off the street. I don't see, I'm not growing the business anymore. I'm not anticipating doing that. We're just trying to reutilize what we have in a more comfortable setting.
Okay, all right.
That's truly what's going on.
All right. So in the case of 91, you're going to have a small showroom, you said, that'll be by appointment only.
Yes.
And the design has, is it large windows in the front?
Yes.
And the purpose of those windows is to?
To display product.
Okay. And then, and so that area you said would be relatively small, right?
Yes.
Is it as small as the area that leads to the counter in the 99, or is it a little bit, the floor space?
I think it would be, it's going to be a little deeper and a little wider.
Okay. And then behind there would be storage.
And behind it's going to be storage, yes.
Right. And then, and I guess, and there's a lower level to that building?
There's there'll be I think it's like 3 steps to drop down.
Okay.
That'll be there.
In the back? I mean, there's a ramp.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're
Right.
talking about the rear of the building
Right,
there.
right.
Yeah, the rear of the building. Right now, there's a dirt ramp with the door that's there.
Right. It's-
We're going to be removing that dirt ramp
Mhm.
and making the entrance right at the building.
Okay.
The docking station will be right at the building.
Mhm.
And then next to that, we're going to have a stoop that we can climb and have a door, a 36-inch open door.
Okay. So there is no, like, basement to that building?
No, there is not.
Okay, all right. Because it's, I mean, again, behind 91 is a pretty steep drop, right? I mean, from the street,
Oh,
streetscape.
from the street down?
Yeah, it's a pretty,
Yeah, there's an incline,
yeah.
yes.
So, and then you mentioned that you anticipate having delivery trucks to go down behind 91, and part of what you're saying is you'd be willing to have vegetation planted along the border, but what you need is the space for trucks to be able to get down there and to back up the ramp.
Well, not back up with the ramp. At that point, once they come down,
Uh-huh.
they can pull back forward and they can come out and they can make a K-turn at the bottom and pull out.
Okay, because that was, so even
But if I
with,
encroached in that area,
Right.
that would make it very tight.
So-
for, let's say, a 40-foot box truck to be able to maneuver in there.
Okay. So even with parking, you anticipated some parking down there as well?
My
Or-
employees, I want my employees to be able to park down there.
Okay,
But I can also tell my employees, we have delivery, move your vehicles.
I see. So I guess presumably then there are certain times of the day that deliveries tend to be made. Is that what you're?
Yeah, this
part
is
of what
not a
you're saying?
nonstop, you know,
Yeah.
it's not a nonstop environment.
Okay, all right,
Like I said before, UPS is more steady than anybody else.
all right.
But they pull in, they pull out, they're gone.
And so then where 95, the building that was demolished, that'll be parking.
That'll be parking, yes.
Okay. And you anticipate how many spaces in that area?
I believe there's 3 spaces up there, which one of them is a handicap.
Okay. All right. So you'll be, you'll be removing the curb? I'm looking at page 11. I just see a curb in front of that building that has been demolished. I know you have a fence that right now goes across the,
Yeah, there's a fence that goes across there right now.
Right.
That apron has been opened up to exactly what this
oh, it
plan
has
is.
been
Yes,
opened
it's-
already?
Yeah, that's as far as we're going, it's right there.
Okay, all right.
That's why if you notice where the old Brantley building was, the doorway that's in the front of that, the apron has been closed up. Because in December, the township redid curbs, sidewalks, all kinds of, so we had that done at that time. We said, listen, hang out, close this up, open this up wider, and it was done.
All right. All right. Okay, I think that's it for now. I presumably we'll hear testimony around lighting and, yes, okay, thank you.
Ms. Harris?
I think you answered most of my questions, but is there an elevation difference between the two lots, or the 91, 95 lot and the 99 lot?
Definitely, yes.
Okay,
If-
so-
I'm sure there's a picture in here that'll show you the, if you look at page 21,
Right.
if you look toward the back of 99 building, you'll see that there's gabion basket. The height of that gabion basket is the difference.
Gotcha, okay. And so you'll have curbing along the parking spots here?
There's
the-
parking toward the lower end there.
Okay, and you'll have
And then
curbing there?
there's parking right when you pull into the apron, to the right-hand side, there's 3 spaces there. The 3 spaces or 2
Two.
spaces?
I think it's actually 2.
Yeah, there's 2 spaces right there. One's a handicap space and one's a regular space.
Oh, good, okay,
This is 91,
right,
but behind this building,
right.
oops. So this is fairly even.
Yeah. Right, so sheer cliff. Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Moore?
No questions.
Mr. Viera?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Gambino. Questions around the, I guess, deliveries, existing deliveries, and if that's going to change with the proposed changes, you know, how you'll receive deliveries and,
I think it'll be easier for us. I don't think there'll be any more deliveries. It's just that, again, having deliveries, having the 40-foot trucks be able to pull to the between, well, actually, the back of 91 and down that driveway will eliminate any confusion out on the street or any confusion on the 99 building. So it'll be all handled from that spot.
okay, and as far as the 99 property, you'll still get deliveries at that property, right, for, you know, supplies?
I would think that we would get, I would say we'd probably get about 75% less, because 91 would handle most of that. And the ones that we would get at 99 would be smaller vehicles and quick in and out type vehicles.
Okay, and
That's the whole
yeah.
point of doing this, to
Right.
make it a lot easier on us also and my employees.
Yeah, and then, do you anticipate you have to move inventory from the storage 91 into 99 constantly, or?
Well, any overstorage that would be in 91, that would all happen from the back area.
The other question I had was, in your experience, how large are the delivery trucks? They're not 18-wheelers, right? They're smaller box trucks.
No, the majority of our deliveries are between a box van, like a 14-foot, 16-foot, and sometimes we have 40-foot, let me say 40-foot, a box truck, what's this thing, about 20 wheels. It's got to be, standard box truck's got to be about 24 feet, maybe, 24 foot.
Essentially box trucks.
Yeah.
Okay, and the other question was around the rolling slide gate. Is
Okay.
that, what's the plan for that? You're gonna close that over, or?
For the gate?
Yeah.
The gate, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing.
So the question is, so you're proposing a rolling gate
Yes.
between the two properties. Is that to close it at night, or?
Well, yes, it was to close it at night, yeah, sure, definitely.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
it was to close it at night. I've never really had a problem in 99. I have gates there, but they stay open all the time, and I never really have a problem there. But for security reasons, I decided to put a gate there. Not for cost, believe me, because it's expensive. Rolling gates are very expensive.
Sure. Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, while we're on gates, currently there's a gate at the back of the building at 99 that separates the,
Yes.
well, I'll call the driveway from the main area.
Yes,
Is that gate going to be removed?
that's going to be removed.
Okay, so my question, and every time I've been to the property, that gate, I mean, it's been off business hours, that gate has been closed. And I guess my difficulty is in terms of this board's prior approval, you were to establish 8 parking spaces, and clearly there are not 8 parking spaces.
Well, in the beginning, there were 8 parking spaces, but as the business grew, we kind of, you don't realize it just happens, just sneaks up on you. Next thing you know, you're choking for space. And this is the whole reason why we went to buy 91, 95, to be able to expand it so that we didn't have to choke.
Okay. And currently, besides the second storage container, there are a large number of pipes and cinder block that are stored in that back end.
All that'll be eliminated. We now have a warehouse at 91 to be able to put it inside.
What vehicles does the business currently have?
It's got a pickup, a minivan, and a smaller sized box truck.
And where do they currently park?
They park in the back of 99 right now.
And where will they park?
They'll park at night behind 91.
Okay. And is that in any way shown on the plans?
I don't think so, no. I mean, the delivery trucks are during the day, most of the time they're out. Salesman takes the minivan out.
You know, the one that you're describing is a box truck, which is about, I guess it's the largest type box truck that,
It's 14 foot.
would take up several parking spaces during the day if it's,
If it was crossing them, but it can pull into one parking space.
then it would be sticking out into the drive aisle considerably.
I wouldn't say that it would be considerably. I mean, it's bigger than it's a 14-foot cube with a Mitsubishi, cab over in the front. So it's not like it's a pickup truck that has a long nose to it. If you know anything about the Mitsubishis, they have that cab over, which is a snub nose frontage. I can measure that.
Because when I saw it last night, it was basically occupied the whole distance from the gate to the rear fence. And ultimately where I'm going is, if that's on the site, and depending upon where on the site, it's either eliminating spaces or you're concerned about delivery vehicles being able to access the overhead door in the rear of 91, that's going to make that even more difficult.
Well, we don't plan on those vehicles being behind 91, like I said. I plan on keeping them, I'm sorry, 99. We don't plan on having them there. I plan on having them at 91.
No, but that's my
And
concern.
we could also
You're-
utilize the
You
ramp.
indicated you did not want to move the parking spaces at the rear of the building at 91 to facilitate delivery, but if the larger box truck is going to be on the property at, 95, at 91, 95, I think you're going to have the same problem with the maneuvering.
But we can move that. Yeah, we can always move that if something. Again, that truck spends most of the day out on the road with delivering and making pickups. Because a lot of our product we pick up and bring back to the shop too with that truck. Well, yeah, truthfully, I plan on, in the ramp that goes down for the doorway of 91, of 99, we plan on utilizing that ramp, you know what I mean, for keeping that truck there.
On which property?
Well, now 95. The rampway that goes down to the doorway, that's opening on 99.
It goes down to the new doorway.
To the new doorway, yes. Because that's a large ramp area.
You plan on using it
I'm sorry?
for? What do you plan on using the ramp for?
We can use that ramp to keep the large box truck out of the way by pulling down that ramp.
Go on adjacent to your existing building?
Yes.
Any other questions from members of the board?
Okay.
Just for the record, are there any members of the audience who have questions for this witness? Do you want to call your next witness?
Yes, thank you. John Guadagnoli.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Mr. Guadagnoli, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
Yes.
State your name and address, please.
John Guadagnoli, 224 Lorraine Avenue, Montclair.
Chairman, offering Mr. Guadagnoli as an expert in the field of architecture, will you accept his qualifications based upon prior testimony?
Yes.
Thank you.
Before you start, just so I know what I should be focused on at this point, we have multiple comments from the board's engineer. You had Mr. Stimmel do a drainage plan that addressed a couple of those comments. If I have questions on the non-drainage comments from the engineer and other board members, should those be directed to Mr. Guadagnoli or Mr. Stimmel?
Mr. Guadagnoli.
Non-drainage is me.
Okay.
I can represent to the board that we're prepared to comply with all of the comments in the engineer's most recent review letter, which I think is dated this morning. And while we're at it, we're also prepared to comply with all of the comments in the report from the Historic Preservation Commission. These are all acceptable.
Okay, proceed.
Okay. All right, John, you prepared the site plan and the architectural plans for this project?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you begin by, reviewing, taking the board through the site plan for 91 and 95 Maple.
Does the board have the copies of the drawings that was submitted before you? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, it's good enough, okay. So, say that again, what would you like? me to
I
do?
want you to just review the overall site plan for 91 and 95 Maple.
Okay, well, right. Well, as you've been discussing, originally, we were only working on 91, but because of the ramp and the connection between the two lots, 99 became pertinent. So anyway, we are not really working on the number 99 building at all. All the work we're proposing is on 91, and, as far as the exterior improvements and the interior arrangement. The number 91 will be the first 800 square feet of that building. The 800 square feet facing the street will be a showroom, essentially, where people can see what they're going to buy and pick up. And then behind that, it will remain as warehouse. And there's an overhead door into the back of the warehouse, and where trucks can pull up and pick up what they need to. We're proposing it's just a simple stair into the back of the building from the back parking lot. The back parking lot has parking spaces for 7 back there. The distance, and one of the things the engineer asked for was the distance from one parking space to the other. It's 37 feet from back of car to back of car.
You're talking about the aisle width in the rear.
Correct, the
Okay.
aisle width, right. So it's 37 feet by it's 50 feet deep, and, so anyway, no, wait, I'm sorry, excuse me, my mistake, sorry. It's over 40 feet, I'm sorry, I was reading the wrong thing. So it's well over 40 feet, and it's more than a required 24 that you would have for regular cars. And there's also 2 parking spots closer to the street, where there's a small planting buffer that we're proposing between the last handicap spot and the sidewalk. There's been one of the things that was commented on by the engineer was that we would be encroaching onto the right-of-way into the sidewalk with a curb and a small planting bed. So I guess that would be something we would discuss now. But it would match the existing handicap ramp that's in the adjacent building, would just keep it all straight. So anyway, we also changed the plantings, as per the comments, to plants that are native to our area and not outside. So I changed the species of plants to comply. There is a slide gate being proposed for the property. It is now, will be in compliance with the height. It's no longer 5 feet. It's now 4 feet high. And what else? The site is being lit. Is being lit by wall-mounted fixtures. I have a photometric chart here on the right side. The only little comment was one of the lights bleeds light into the next door neighbor, so we can adjust that to make it work. What else? The entire lot will be repaved, new, okay, and restriped, and the water will be managed as per Mr. Stimmel's work. So,
Can you talk about the new basement entry door into the building at 99 and that area
Yep.
which contemplates a retaining wall?
right. The ramp that goes down and requires a retaining wall, the bottom of that ramp will be equal with the basement of the adjacent building at number 99. This will be to facilitate hand trucks and the carrying of goods from that basement up the ramp and into the adjacent building. This makes it much more convenient, as Mr. Gambino has mentioned. The retaining wall is it's just under 4 feet high. Well, the distance between the bottom of the ramp and the parking lot is just under 4 feet high. And there's an aluminum railing on top of that to prevent falling into the pit. The engineer's comments asked that we extend the length of the aluminum railing all the way to the end of the ramp, which we will gladly do. Finally, the pitch of the ramp is very mild. It's only like 2 feet and 32 feet. So it's a gentle slope down. So merchandise can be transferred from one building to the other without steps and other inconveniences. That's it.
Okay. I think we all had the same question as the engineer had. Behind 99 Maple, your plans show a circle. Can you explain what the intention is there?
Yeah, it was something we put on to show what would be the what's the maximum turning radius if a car make that turn, and it couldn't. A 1K turn would be necessary. It's a 38. It's 30. No, I'm sorry. It's 35 feet in diameter, which is like, so you need a little more than that. So I was hoping it's something that was left on the drawing as part of an exercise. We didn't mean to leave it there. It was just us studying the turning radius of a car, and it proved to be a little too small. But we have no more room. We have the building and the property lines prohibit a bigger radius, but the car almost makes it. Maybe one of those little smart cars would make it, but I mean, the average car would need a 1K turn to make it.
Okay. Would you just address the exterior changes to the building at 91?
Yeah, sure.
Particularly, obviously, what fronts on faces Maple Avenue.
Yes, if you look at the drawing, the lower center bottom of the drawing shows what the front elevation of the building currently looks like. There's a doorway on the far left side, then there's a picture window next to it, and a large overhead door to the right side. The new plan, which is in the upper left, a new elevation, excuse me, in the upper left, envisions a 3 large storefront windows, a canopy over it with brackets on either side, and you'll notice that the top of the roof is no longer flat. It is a stepped thing that gives it a very old kind of almost like an old garage, or an old, certainly not a dwelling. It says business. It says, it says commerce. So it's a very common thing you saw in buildings years ago, and so I was trying to recreate that stepped sense of a place of business. The door to enter the store, or the showroom, is on the right now, closer to the parking lot and very close to the handicap spot. The building is basically maintains a stucco that it has now, but it would be all treated and re-stuccoed smooth. One thing that the historic board had requested was that the front of the building with the step, we can do the copings as we show them in precast concrete, but on the side of the building, which is the drawing just below it, they wanted us to maintain the old-fashioned clay coping, which we've agreed to do, so we're going to keep that and refurbish it as necessary. But they did allow the front to change, understanding that in order to do what we want to do, it would get all beat up. We couldn't preserve those. Again, it maintains as a simple stucco building, and there's a little band along the bottom, kind of like a projecting stucco base sill piece that would maybe be of a darker color, so the splatter from rain doesn't just go right on the building, but it's like a little, kind of like your baseboard in your house, just a darker color, and it just, so you don't see that brown and black splatter that you always see on the bottom of buildings, especially stucco buildings that are monolithic, you know. And I think, yeah, that's it. Oh, and they wanted the brackets that I showed to be made of wood, no FIPON, no fake materials, so that's no problem, we do that.
You've agreed to all the comments from the HPC?
Yes, in fact, they've been implemented already on the drawing on that, so, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. I think that's all I have for Mr. Guadagnoli. I think you've covered
Thank you.
the plans, right? Yep, okay.
Mr. McCulloch, do you have any questions?
So the facade of the two buildings will really complement each other, I mean, based on the way that you've,
Well, you mean, yeah, the other building is on, you can see in the photograph on the lower right of the
Right.
picture. Yeah, yes, the bottom of the other building is also stucco, but the top is that rusticated block. That was also very common, and you could see, by the way, that that building next door steps up.
yes, number 91.
Number 91 steps
You're
up,
gonna
yeah.
step it up so that it complements.
It complements.
It looks like the two buildings
Yeah.
are intended to be together.
Yeah.
Work together.
Which would be a nice addition to that,
Thank you.
yeah. I mean, certainly, one of the questions that I had initially when I saw this was, well, why is 91 being retained? Why not just demolish it? You know, because, I mean, there was nothing particularly historically significant about it at all. But, I mean, at least, but the way that you've designed it gives it the appearance of, the more historic character of that neighborhood.
Well, I was inspired a little bit by some things going on across the street.
Yes.
Where I saw there's like a white building they
Yes,
just
yeah,
redid.
there was a
and I think- So I
building that
see
we
that there's a
discussed.
little bubbling of action, so
Right.
let's respect what's going on, so.
Okay.
that was it.
So now, you said that I had a question about the lighting. So, what is it that you're proposing? Oh, before I get to the lighting, for 99, you have, on the upper level, that's residential, right? I think is it 2 apartments? Okay.
It's
So-
two existing apartments.
So, is there parking provided for the people living above 99?
Yes.
Where do they park?
Well, there are, let's see, there are 8 parking spots on that lot,
Uh-huh.
and some of those are allocated for the tenants.
So currently, they are allowed to keep their vehicles on the property?
Yes.
Overnight?
Right? That's my understanding. right?
They
Okay.
park on 99.
Yeah.
Okay.
The lot on the side.
Okay.
During the day, they go to work, and then, at night, they park on the side.
And so that'll continue? Okay, thank you. Okay, so now going back to the lighting.
Yep.
So what kind of lighting are you proposing that would, again, sort of be consistent with the character of the neighborhood or helping to uplift the character of the neighborhood?
Well, these are wall packs, they're wall-mounted, I don't know, they're about, 14 or 15 inches, and they're LEDs. And, yeah, they just shine the light down to provide lighting for the, for the driveways. On 91, it's kind of superfluous because nobody's there at night. It's a business that closes at, 5 o'clock. The other building has tenants, so those people need to be able to park on the lot, so that's a little bit more important. But, no, actually, I haven't proposed any historic lighting or anything like that in this case. I just was trying to get the right amount of foot candles there. I mean, you don't really notice those things anyway, and anything historic wouldn't throw the light I need to throw at those distances, to provide the adequate illumination, so.
And you mentioned that there was like one area, or is it 2 areas where the lighting might infringe upon the neighbor?
Number 91, behind number 91, yeah, the lighting, the lighting kicks back a little bit because it's on a pole. That's the one light that's gonna be on a pole, and so we have to put a guard there to deflect the light from getting onto the neighbor's property there, that's all. It's not much of an encroachment, but, it's, you know, it's nothing.
And that would be, is it 89? Is that the property that would be impacted by that? Because I know it's very close proximity between that house and 91.
Yeah.
No, actually, that area is the backs. It's the backs of all everyone on Woodland Avenue. It's the backs of the properties on Woodland, and there are
Okay.
2 garages there, in fact. So it's really just a little bit of space between the 2 garages that just encroaches the far backyard of a couple of the lots.
I
you
see,
know.
okay.
Yeah.
And there is like a, is there like a little, like an alley between 89 and 91?
Yes, there is.
And-
Yes, most of it belongs to 89, though.
Most of it belongs to 89.
Yeah.
And is like a gate or something in front of, at the front of
Let's
it?
see here. All right, look at the picture might tell me.
There's a wrought iron gate there.
Yeah.
There's a wrought iron gate.
Yeah. There appears to be some electrical equipment and stuff there too, so I think that's why the gate's there. It's very narrow, yeah.
But your understanding is that it probably belongs to the other property, to 89?
Yeah, based on the survey, I'm seeing it's like 2 or 3 to 1, you know. So if the whole thing is like 30 inches, let's say, it's only about 8 inches of it belongs to 91. The rest of it looks like, yeah, actually, it's here it is. It's 0.8 feet. 0.8. So it's inches. It's yeah. It's like, I don't know, 9 inches or something,
Yeah.
9.5 inches.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed that, you know, that when we, not only in this particular neighborhood, but all the other neighborhoods as well, where we have these little narrow alleys, they have a tendency to catch a lot of debris. And so the question is, you know, how do you prevent that?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
when
see.
you're talking about, you know, the common good, how do you prevent, you know, and here you have, you know, an earnest attempt by Mr. Gambino to upgrade this property. So how do you prevent, and maybe that's
Can I
not,
answer that?
sure,
If it was my property, I would take steps in putting a more solid door and a maintenance program. But unfortunately, that is not my property.
Mhm.
And that gate is not my gate, but it's been attached to my property.
Mhm.
But that gate is used for Verizon to get to their boxes that are on the adjacent property.
I see.
Because there's nothing in that alleyway that no electric meters, gas meters, or anything for that 91 building.
Good. All right. All right, thank you.
Ms. Harris?
Is the sign on 91 supposed to be illuminated at all?
I'm sorry?
Is the sign on 91 proposed to be illuminated, or is there any lighting?
No, no.
And then where on the elevation is the light pack used?
There are no light packs on the front elevation.
On the side elevation?
On the side, yes. Well, that was I have the lighting, well, you see it on the lighting plan, sheet A1, upper right corner. It's about a quarter of the way down the length of the driveway. You can see fixture A there. So that would place it kind of over that first window as you're looking at the side of the building, it's kind of over that first window, which I'm sorry I didn't indicate it on the elevation, but yeah, it's on that first window, it's above that first window.
Okay, and then there's no lighting proposed for the front elevation, right?
Only in the soffit of the overhang. There's a little overhang, so, plus the inside of the store will have some, incidental little lighting on some of the merchandise at times, so that'll bleed out. But no, there really would be no reason. The business is not open during the night or anything, so, and nobody has to access anything there, so.
Yeah, well, I'm with Mr. McCullough. I used to walk down the street coming from the train late at night. It's always nice to have illumination. Okay, that's it for me for questions.
Mr. Moore?
All of my questions have been asked.
Mr. Vieira?
No questions.
So, the charging station that you proposed, generally when we see charging stations, they're located between two parking spaces so they can both take advantage. Why are you just proposing it so only one space can access it?
Say that, I'm sorry, what was the question? I see where the charging station is now, okay.
Okay, generally, when we've seen these proposed, they're proposed between two parking spaces. You're proposing it so only the one space can access it. The question is why not located between two spaces?
It is located between two spaces. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, I see. It's on the last parking space. Yeah, I could put it between the number 6 and number 7. I could put it between spaces number 6 and 7. Sorry, yeah, you're right. The other side of that, there is no parking. Right, I hear you.
Okay, and then, do these plans show the changed landscaping from the boxwood?
No, not yet, no.
Okay, so what are you proposing instead of the boxwood?
Okay, I have it here. Okay, we're proposing in that planting area two types of two evergreen bushes and 3 deciduous. The evergreens are it's called an inkberry. The common name is strongbox, and the deciduous ones are Farthergilla. I can't even read the Latin name. The common name is Jardini, and they are no more than 3 feet high. They grow less than 3 feet tall, and there'll be 3 of those. So.
Okay, and Mr. Trembulac indicated you were going to comply with all the engineer's conditions, but one of them dealt with lot consolidation, but...
My mistake.
But there are a couple others which I'm not sure that's what you're doing, and relates to one of the comments from the planner's memo. Number 23 says you should consider screening along the perimeter and the buffer from the adjacent residential properties. The planner's memo said you should move them back and meet the 4-foot landscaping requirement. Are you doing anything whatsoever to screen the residential properties? I mean, you have, basically 27 feet between the 2 garages based on the width. There are 3 parking spaces that are, you pull into them, there are no garages in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
And are you doing anything to screen the residential properties along Woodland?
My understanding is that the owner was going to put a solid fence or a slatted fence to block the view between the commercial and the residential for that stretch.
Okay, your plans are showing a chain link fence with the privacy slats. That's what, I assume that is what is proposed?
Right.
Okay, any other questions from members of the board? Any members of the public who have questions for this witness? You want to call your next witness?
Thank you. William Stimmel?
Mr. Stimmel, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address.
William Stimmel, S-T-I-M-M-E-L. My professional address is P.O. Box 280, Rutherford, New Jersey.
Mr. Chairman, I'm offering Mr. Stimmel as an expert in the field of engineering and professional planning, and I would hope you'd stipulate to his qualifications.
I assume your licenses are still current?
Yes, both licenses still current.
Okay, we accept him.
Okay. All right. Mr. Stimmel, I'd like you to start. You prepared a grading and drainage plan for this project, correct?
I did, yes.
And that was done several days ago.
Mr. Trebiak, why don't we mark that as
Yep.
Exhibit A2?
Thank you. Would you just briefly review that plan for the board?
Sure. The grading and drainage plan I prepared has a date of July 17th of this year. Shows the layout of the subject property with the adjoining lot, Lot 10 with building number 99 Maple on it. It shows the existing contours, the locations of the existing building, and the property lines and the curb line as well. The grading pattern is generally going to remain the same as what's on the subject property now. The elevation at the right-of-way line with Maple Avenue is about 237, drops down to about 231, 230 at the rear of the property. So all the stormwater that falls in the paved portions of the site is going to flow to the rear of the property, with the exception of the small area of the ramp leading down to the lower level of number 99. There is a trench drain at the bottom of that ramp, which is going to collect any rainwater which falls on the ramp or falls on the pad outside that side building entrance. It's going to be pumped back up to the driveway and then flow to the 4 seepage pits at the rear of the property. The applicant's proposing to put in 4 seepage pits in a 10-foot by 40-foot long stone bed. In addition to capturing runoff from the paved areas of the site, there's going to be 2 roof leaders, one to the building located at 91 Maple, which will run directly to the seepage pits, one which will catch a portion of the runoff from the buildings at 99 Maple, will drop down and run along the face of the gabion wall and drop down, go underground, and tie into that western or southernmost seepage pit. So runoff from all of the subject property of 91 and 95 Maple, as well as a portion of 99 Maple, will be directed to those seepage pits. More or less maintains the existing grading pattern on the subject property, but eliminates the contribution of site runoff to the Maple Avenue right-of-way and provides on-site infiltration, whereas there currently isn't any. We did address the comments, I believe, that were in the prior review letter from Boswell Engineering, and aside from one typo, they did not take any issue with the revised grading and drainage.
They actually accepted or approved the plan that's been submitted, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does the plan also address the comment in Mr. Scoullos' memo, planning consideration number 3? I think you indicated it, Deb, but I just wanted to.
Yes,
make sure
the 4 proposed seepage pits are going to have an open grate at the top. The grate will be sturdy enough to support vehicle loading, but will allow stormwater to enter the pits directly And they'll be situated in the property such that the axis rather of the 4 seepage pits runs along the lowest portion of the property.
The comment from Mr. Scoullos was that drainage inlets be tied into the proposed dry well?
Correct. And
Okay.
the inlets will effectively be the top of the dry well itself.
Gotcha, okay. I just wanted
Sorry,
to
the
make
comment is about the drainage from the parking area at 99 Maple Avenue,
Right.
which is the other property where the seepage pits are not located.
I misunderstood that. I thought you were concerned about the 91 and 95 Maple. I don't have an issue per se with tying that in. Obviously, the larger contribution to the pits will result in more runoff in a major storm event. Also, we need to look at the topography. We don't have topography on that adjoining lot, but we could certainly review that.
Okay, before you talk about the variances, can you just review the parking requirements for this application?
Certainly. The applicant is proposing to use the existing building at 91 Maple as a warehouse. Based on the square footage of that building, the parking requirement for that portion of the site is going to be 3 parking spaces. The existing plumbing supply and apartments have been granted a variance for parking where 20 parking spaces were required at the time of the passage of the 1993 resolution, and 8 were provided, so they were granted a variance for that 8. So 8 for the existing portion of the site, 3 for the proposed portion of the site. The total parking requirement is 11 parking spaces, where 18 are provided based on the layout from Mr. Guadagnoli.
So no variance would be required with respect to parking?
Correct. No variance is required.
Okay. All right, then can you go in and discuss the 2 variances that are required? And I'm sure you want to provide some background information regarding the site and the neighboring properties, et cetera, before you
Sure.
discuss the variances.
Just very briefly, the site is located in the R3 Garden Group Zone, as are the nearby lots fronting along Maple Avenue between Lexington and Monroe Place. The zoning pattern in the area allows for almost exclusively residential or public uses to the south of Bloomfield Avenue as you head toward the municipal boundary with West Orange. The development pattern in the area as it exists generally follows the zoning. However, there is a pocket of commercial uses along Maple Avenue in the immediate vicinity of the site. There's, of course, the existing plumbing supply business, the garage building at 91 Maple, which had been used previously as auto repair. There's a nearby cafe, a deli, event space, and then there are also several retail stores just to the north of the site opposite Glenfield Park. But the garden group zone is primarily residential in nature. It allows for 1- and 2-family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, townhouses, senior housing, and also municipal facilities. There's a number of conditional uses which are primarily residential in nature or uses which are supportive to residential uses. So based on the above, the existing plumbing supply business, of course, is not permitted in the zone. By expanding the use onto the adjoining property, by adding that storage area and having the shared parking, the applicant is required to obtain a D2 variance for the expansion of a non-conforming use. The applicant has to, of course, demonstrate that the positive and negative criteria have been satisfied. However, in this case, the burden of proof is less than if he were proposing to construct a new business on the subject property. The applicant needs to focus on the impacts of the expansion itself, and where there is a demonstration that the use is unlikely to die out on its own, make an argument that this is an opportunity for the board to, in effect, clean up the site, address some of the issues which may impact the neighborhood in which the site is located and doesn't allow for the type of use in question. Particularly in the case of a minor expansion of an existing nonconforming use, the applicant has to demonstrate that the expansion will minimize the impacts of the use or beautify the property or address various other concerns the board may have to satisfy the positive criteria through the advancement of the general welfare. So as far as the minor expansion of the use, Lot 10 is currently occupied by the existing plumbing supply business. Lot 12 was previously occupied with a commercial business, the auto repair, and the proposed plumbing supplies utilization of that portion of the property is going to be less intense than the auto repair which had previously been existed. As it stands now, the plumbing supply business has storage demands, storage of materials, which can't be accommodated on the site. The applicant is proposing to construct significant improvements to the subject property that would not otherwise occur. There will be an improvement to stormwater runoff by the detention system located at the rear of 91 and 95 Maple. There will be no additional services provided by the plumbing supply business. Their intention is merely to provide a more efficient service and make a better use of the property, not to, as Mr. Gambino had said, not to grow the business. The auto repair use, of course, will be eliminated from the area, and the applicant will also be removing the storage trailer. As far as the negative criteria is concerned, the applicant must demonstrate that the requested expansion will not cause substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. As far as the public good is concerned, I think the significant upgrades to the property would address that. The parking lot will be improved with asphalt pavement and clear striping. There will be improved circulation. There will be significant drainage improvements, site lighting, electrical vehicle charging, landscaping areas, aesthetic improvements to the building, as well as privacy screening to the adjoining residential lots. The expansion of the use is relatively minor in nature. Based on my evaluation, there will be no substantial detriment to the goals and purposes of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. I think at a worst case, comparing the plumbing supply to the auto repair which had existed would be a lateral move, but in a practical sense, it represents an improvement. That is the D variance associated with the application. Based on the revisions to the plan, there had been 3 C variances associated with the application. Now there's only the one, which is the maximum combined fence and wall height, where 4.5 feet is permitted, 7.5 feet is proposed, and that is just the combination of the retaining wall with the fence atop it that's going to allow for the access to the lower level of the existing building on 99 Maple. Obviously, that's at least partially related to the existing topography of the subject property, the location and design of the building on 99 Maple. The applicant is just intending to provide access to the basement to allow for more effective use of the building, given where it's located on the subject property, not only between the 2 buildings, but also down from the Maple Avenue right-of-way, with the fact that there's probably going to be cars parked in those parking spaces in between the right-of-way and the ramp, the landscaping there, the fencing, the change in grade, and the location between the buildings. That ramp will have very limited visibility, and if in fact you are looking at it from the sidewalk, let's say, all you're going to see is the fence. You're not going to realize that there's that 4-foot drop on the other side of the fence where the retaining wall is. So it would certainly have a minimal impact on the public motorists or pedestrians in the public right-of-way. Then there are also 3 design waivers associated with the application. The first is for angled parking, where 9 by 19 is required, 7 by 16 is proposed. There is space along 99 Maple Avenue where that angled parking is provided along the side of the building to widen those spaces out, effectively sliding that striping toward the rear of the property. So we could revise the plan to comply with that. The required screening around the parking area and the landscape setback around the parking area. It's effectively an existing condition, but the applicant has agreed to provide additional fencing upgrades in that area to better screen it. The concern with providing the landscape setback in that location is, as Mr. Gambino had testified, that if you take 4 feet off of either side of the property, you're cutting into the maneuvering area for the box trucks, which would be utilizing the loading dock at the rear of the building. So the express preference there, obviously, is to not provide that 4-foot setback, but to address the screening with an upgraded fence. So those are the variances and design waivers associated with the application. I think based on the plan submitted and the testimony provided, the board has sufficient justification to grant the requested variance relief.
No further questions.
Mr. McCulloch, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Stimmel. No questions.
Ms. Harris?
There is a drywall shown on the architectural drawings, but you have the seepage pits. Do the seepage pits replace the drywall, or are both going to be used?
Correct. The seepage pits, dry well, they're basically the same thing, but my plan was prepared subsequent to Mr. Guadagnoli's to address the comments from Boswell, and effectively supersedes the grading and drainage on his plan.
Okay. And then where, there's a detail for a pipe, a trench drain, which I'm assuming is at the bottom of the ramp, but where does the pipe trench?
The pipe trench would be where the roof leaders from 91 and 99 Maple drop underground and then run underneath the pavement to reach the seepage pit. So that's the only pipe trench.
Got it. So on the plan, that 32 linear feet of 6-inch PVC, that's the pipe trench?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Moore?
No questions.
Mr. Viera?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess just following up on the comment number 3, I believe. Yeah, number 3 on the planning report. So was there a plan to address any stormwater from 99, which is the building with the residential in the second floor?
The only portion of 99 that was expected to be tied into the drainage system proposed to the rear of 91 was the hatched portion of the roof that's shown on the grading and drainage plan, which is about 1,150 square feet.
Yeah. But not the parking lot, just that, the roof, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's an existing condition. The topography wasn't picked up on the survey, which we based the grading and drainage plan off of. The lot 99, or 99 Maple, the property is higher. Specifically at the rear, it's probably 7 or 8 feet higher than 91 Maple, but it's a question of collecting everything and tying it into the proposed drainage behind 91 Maple. I don't think anybody is opposed to it in principle, but there may be some practical difficulties there. But we do intend to collect a portion of the roof runoff, and I don't think the client would object to collecting parking lot runoff to the extent that we could without having to then also tear up the whole parking lot for that building as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay,
99 Maple has its own pit. It's been drained for years.
Did not know that. Maybe that's why we did not have topography.
okay, we
We
need
need-
to put that on the record.
Right, yes.
Well,
Want to do it right now? Okay. Jack, come on. You wanted to make a comment regarding 99 Maple drainage?
Yes. The
99 Maple.
ground drainage on Maple Avenue in the rear, there is a pit, since the wall went up over that, it's been draining in there for years. And we maintain both pits that are there. So that water doesn't go into anybody else's property, it doesn't go anywhere else. That ground actually had a sand base when we first got to there, and the water just absorbed right into that ground. So that's been there for years.
You said there are pits back there. Can you
If
just?
you look, if you go to the back of the building,
Mhm.
you'll see that there's a, it's got to be 3x3 cast iron grate.
The first condition of the 92, 93, whatever it was, approval required that they have a stormwater management plan approved by the board engineer. So there should be something in the files that,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, that was done years ago when all that was done.
You said there are two pits.
There's a collection pit with a pipe that goes into a drainage system that accommodates, I don't know how many thousand gallons.
For what it's worth, I do see a heavy-duty grate located in the rear parking area at the, I guess that would be the southernmost corner of the property. So that's picked up on my site photos.
I have a couple of planning questions. So this is proceeding as a D2 variance with the building on 91 being expansion of the use on 99, correct?
Correct.
And as a D2 variance, as you testified, there's a lesser standard of proof.
Correct.
Okay. Now, Mr. Gambino has indicated he does not want to consolidate the lot for 99 Maple with the other two lots because he wants to potentially sell one or the other in the future. How does that impact the variance we're granted if the justification for the variance tonight is the use being tied to the other use?
That is an interesting question. I had considered the same question myself and thought that if not knowing Mr. Gambino's future plans at the time, but if he had intended to spin it off, it might make more sense to make the application for the D1 variance. That way, if at some point he sold one property or the other, he could just spin it off. I suppose the variance could be granted with the idea that if you sell off one of the properties, you have to come in for a new variance, because then effectively you'd be creating an independent commercial property which is approved for use as a plumbing supply, well, a warehouse for a plumbing supply. I don't know, I might have to think about this a moment. You know, it could be approved for the warehouse, not specific to the type of warehouse use. I don't have an answer for that.
I've been clearly doing this for too long, but the other question I have is concerning the parking. My understanding of your testimony is that that excess parking is being provided over what is required. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my question there is, why not eliminate some or all and redirect the location of the spaces along the northern property line? So if there's a concern about maneuverability of the delivery trucks, those spaces aren't necessary, and why are we imposing spaces immediately next to adjacent properties which had no parking there? Because as Mr. Gambino said, you couldn't access the rear of the property before and have their headlights for 3 of the spaces shining directly into their backyards.
I think the issue with the headlights is probably going to be limited. The applicant has agreed to upgrade the screening at that location. The business obviously will likely be open past dark at certain times of the year, but there's going to be very limited activity during the overnight period when it would be of significant impact to a residence. I think as far as the maneuvering is going, the idea is that the full width of the rear area should be available for maneuvering. If there is parking there, it's going to be the vehicles associated with the business, either the marked Montclair Supply Company vehicles or his employees who he could get to move, but you still have the pavement in that location for maneuvering. So I think that is the intention. I think the way the site will operate, there would be a limited impact back there for the residents. So I think hopefully that addresses the question.
Well, what if that area was restricted to parking for the vehicles of the business, which, as Mr. Gambino said, they can obviously move those when they need to move those and then not have an issue with any, really impacting the neighbors and the vehicles going in and out.
No issue with that. I don't see any objection.
What spaces are we talking about?
They're 6, 7, 8, and 9. 6, 7, and 8 are the ones of major concern because those don't back up to an existing garage.
This is 99, these 3 spaces.
Then, of course, that affects the charging station, but that can be dealt with.
Yeah, that's the charging stations.
Well, I'm thinking you might need them. But could you agree to restrict these to employees, those 3 spaces to employees?
Sure.
So,
Okay. Other questions from members of the board? Are there any members of the audience who either have questions for this witness or want to give any testimony, comment, or anything you want to say about the application? Mr. Trembulac, we are 5. I'll first ask you, without saying anything, how do you want to proceed?
well, we're inclined to move forward and ask the board to vote. I'm a little bit concerned by the legal issue, I guess, that the chairman raised, and I'm not sure if that's problematic, but I do know it's late. I'm not sure I can properly analyze that. I mean, I think we can justify the variance under D1, D2.
Well, let me just jump in. I mean, the property, Lot 10, is really not being changed, and there was a use variance and a parking variance granted for that, and the proposal is not to consolidate that, so that standing alone seems fine. So the lot 12, 91 Maple, it seems to me that's a D1 use variance, not a D2. We're taking out one non-conforming use, one use that was not compliant with the zoning ordinance, and we're putting in a different one, which is going to be on its own standalone, well, combined with lot 11, but it's going to be on its own lot. I think that's a D1.
No, but but the notice was for a D2 variance.
Yeah, but I think any lay person who gets that notice, whether it says D1, D2, D7, D11, I think is on notice that that use is not permitted, that what the use is going to be. I don't have a notice issue. I think we could go with a D1 if that's the direction the board takes.
But besides saying D2, which I'll agree with you, only those of us who are lawyers care about specifying, it says to expand the commercial use. And I somewhat disagree, and I think we can address it, but not all the way there. They're proposing a new entrance to 99 through 95, and doing improvements on 95 to do that, and drainage connected, parking will certainly be shared. I mean, we would need several cross easements to deal with the two uses.
Right.
if I were you, I would go home. And two things. And to some extent, this is more of a site plan issue as to, I'd be much happier seeing, if we had seen something showing, you know, a turning radius type thing for the delivery trucks and what would actually be involved, because I'm not sure it actually, even if the parking spaces stay as they are, that it actually still works, but I'd like to see how it works, and I'd like to see some thought on redoing those parking spaces in some fashion, then relocating the charging station. And, you know, the most common thing we see with charging spaces is shared between the handicap space and an adjoining spaces. You know, Mr. Stimmel's testimony was on a D2 variance, and I'm not particularly hung up on the notice, but you know, but I don't really want to sit here tonight and have him do a D1 variance without his really having looked at it. I think the alternate approach is what Mr. Stimmel suggested, is we would impose a condition that says if the properties are being separated, ownership being separated, the 9195 would have to come back in for a use variance for whatever's going, you know, and not a D variance, not for whatever is on that lot. And you know, I think those are the two options, and I think you should discuss those with Mr. Gambino as to the implications of one versus the other. And you know, one would have Mr. Stimmel come back and do a D1 presentation. I also think having more members of the board here would be a good idea.
So the suggestion is to revise the plan for the next meeting, correct?
Revise the plan and decide how you want to deal with the variance issue.
I think that's a good
Right,
suggestion.
in addition to the parking spaces, you could change the landscaping that you talked about, all the other things you talked about. Mr. Guadagnoli, if you do a revised plan, please put a revision date on it so we can distinguish the new plan from the old plan.
And
We would agree with that, Mr. Chairman, and we would propose to come back at the next meeting and to request that the application be carried, no further notice, and obviously we consent if there's any need to extend the board's time to decide the application.
so we'll carry this matter, and will you be able to get the plans revised by August 6th is really the date we would be looking at?
I think so.
Okay, so this hearing is being continued until August 16th, which is our next regular meeting, same time, same place. We have one other application that we carried tonight, so we would hear you before that. And as there'll be no further notice will be provided, so if anyone's watching us on YouTube or Channel 34, mark your calendar if you're interested in the application.
Okay. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
And before we adjourn, this is Tommy's last meeting. He decided he likes his home state of Virginia rather than New Jersey for reasons that are beyond my comprehension, but
He'll be back.
we appreciate everything you've done. You've been a great asset to the board. You've really been a great planner, and I know you've been very helpful to applicants, so we greatly appreciate you, and we will greatly miss you.
Thank you, I
Thank you,
appreciate that. Thank you.
And we're not meeting August 2nd, so we'll next see you on August 16th. And I will email Janice about, we really do need more board members. Hopefully, I'm baffled by people saying they're coming and not coming, but okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
See you in August.